Hello. Please leave a message after the tone.
Bro, what the fuck? You still have my sister for your voicemail? You need to change that shit. Because when somebody calls you for a job opportunity, they're gonna be like, so is it sushi or you're crazy? Bro, this is crazy.
Lois, I literally cannot.
We can't hang up. What's the phone?
Hey, sweet cakes, it's me. I was just calling to let you know how much I really do miss you, babe. I've been thinking of you all day, and I hope that you're having a great day, because I know how you told me how much your coworkers are annoying. It's okay, babe, because I know you're going to get through it. But I really do hope you have a good day, and I was thinking of making you your favorite pasta. What do you think? But babe, I really miss you. Please give me a call when you get the chance. I love you.
You're so cute. You're so cute. Damn, Luis, you just keep giving me challenge after challenge, and you know I'm down. But I'm interested in all the cochinadas que quieres hacerme. I'm like curious about it. What can it be? Well, let's just find out, I guess. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
It's really good.
Is it?
Yeah, it's really good. I fuck with it.
Awesome.
All right, guys, you're listening to Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. This is Luis, me again. Let's just get right into it. Who are you? Where are we? What are we doing here? I'm going to raw dog this whole interview, by the way. And when I say raw dog, I mean I'm not going to use headphones or anything because I just want to go on the levels. And in this world, that's frowned upon. But I don't like doing things that people like doing.
That's why we're going to get along.
I'm like a little outlaw with my microphones.
Perfect. That's perfect.
But who are you and what are we doing here? Tell me everything, because for some of you guys, this is a little bit of a throwback, almost a full circle moment from, well, go ahead.
My name's Natalie. We are over at King's Hookah Lounge. Sounds like this has some history here. So we're sitting here smoking hookah, chilling, having good conversations.
Actually, just for reference, what am I smoking right now?
You are smoking tobacco.
Like
tobacco.
what flavor is it? Do you remember what it off the top of your head?
So your flavor is a brand new one. It's called Lacoste or something like that. It's brand new. We actually don't know what's in it. So it's like a mystery flavor from Jordan. Yeah. So totally like from across the pond. We had a really good friend from Turkey bring us really awesome sushi. Am I okay? Shisha. And that's a flavor that he was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't know what that means, but it's good. And so I was like, all right, let's do it. So you were brave enough to be the first one to try it, and it sounds like it slaps.
It really does slap, and I think the cool thing about it is I don't know, it just feels very homey, relaxy. But I don't know, maybe it's just the atmosphere, maybe it is just the actual hookah flavor. But because we are at King Hookahs, a lot of you guys from the beginning, if you guys remember the couple episodes of Body Count, when it was Body Count, I remember it was me going around talking to drunk people and trying to get them to talk to me about their sex life. I wanted to be like a mix of Howard Stern meets Dr. Ruth. Let's talk about sex, but be poignant about it, especially with hookup culture. You know what I'm saying? I think that'd be so much fun to talk about. People were fucking shy. I didn't like that. And I remember I had this thing where I had to figure it out. And so while I was coming up with guests and trying to figure out a way to get people to even give a shit, I remember I had 2 microphones and 2 Amazon microphones and one that I stole. And I had to figure something out. And then I came here to King Hookah, met Ross the boss. I love that dude, first and foremost. Love that dude.
Best dude on the planet.
He comes up to me, and I don't know if you guys remember, I was like, super in my feelings, but he comes to basically grabs me by the neck and goes, Luis, we're not going to talk about sex. We're not talking about my sex life. In my culture, we don't do any of that. We're not open like that. It's offensive. And if we want to come and have a conversation, you can. And I remember we had that conversation, but I remember I was just so like, I felt like a kid being told what to do. It was really embarrassing, but like humbling. And after we had our conversation, we had that really good conversation that led to the Perrier water thing. And then that led to a bunch of other opportunities, which was super dope. I ended up rebranding that night at 3 a.m, just rebranding to Down the Rabbit Hole to DTRH, drawing the bunny rabbit that's on the t-shirt that I gave you. Everything, just reset the mindset. And it was super cool. So I really do think this place it does have a lot of history for me. And I guess it's like, that's why I was like, when I came here, I saw you guys were posting, and keep this in mind.
Yes.
I thought he's posting and you guys were like, oh, you guys have been really quiet lately. And I've been keeping up with him over the years here and there. But like, I saw the posting and I was like, oh, you guys are becoming more active. Hell yeah. And, I was like, I remember back in the day of this place, there would be sometimes DJs. And if you guys know, remember, I do DJ Wheezy on the side. Hire me for your thing. DJ Wheezy.
Hire him.
And for the last 2 years, I've been doing DJ Wheezy. The last year, it's like seriously taking it way seriously. And I was like, you guys should do that. Like, would you guys consider one? And then what was the reply? Yeah, how much would you charge? And I'm like, man, for you, nothing. Like, I'll do it right now for free. So getting off of work, I came here today on a Thursday and came after work. My plan was just to talk business. And lo and behold, I see Miss Natalie here and Ross, So I was kind of confused. Turns out he's not here right now, but he's here, but he's not here. But now we have this really cool connection where I want to like actually seriously talk about getting DJing back in here.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
We would love that.
And I guess that's where you come in. What's your story? How'd you get here? Why were you just sitting in my man's spot?
I know, seriously. It's so funny. It's a long story, but it's one of my favorite stories, honestly. I don't know where you want me to begin because...
well, okay. I saw your license plate, and you're not from Oregon. Let's start there.
I am not from Oregon. I'm from Utah.
Okay. That says a lot already.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? That says a lot already. And I'm very curious because one of the first things I asked you, remember, and again, keep in mind, I got so excited with this conversation that I ran my ass home, got all my equipment, and came back. But one of the first things I asked, do you still have the underwear?
Yeah, see, and I don't. I was a bad Mormon. I was raised Mormon. Obviously, I'm from Utah, so I was a bad Mormon. I was, I guess that's kind of where, I don't know where you want this to begin. We can begin when I was a cop. We can begin at my marriage. We can, where do you want to begin?
And that's the thing. And because it is down the road, we can go any rabbit hole. And if you want to do ADD with it,
I have ADHD so bad.
We can go back and forth anytime you want. So let's start as far back. What was your childhood like in Utah? Why Utah? Is that where your roots are at, or are you a transplant from there?
Those are my roots.
So you're like an OG Utahnian.
OG Utah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I made that up, by the way.
Yeah, it's close enough. We're Utahns, but it's the closest to Utahnian. That's hilarious. So I was born and raised in like the Salt Lake City metro area. If anybody's listening that's from that area, like the Murray, Holiday, Mill Creek area, and went to high school at Olympus. Of all places.
Shout out Olympus.
Yes, we love that. The Titans. Woo woo. We definitely moved around a couple of times in my childhood. Nothing crazy. But I went to high school there, and that's when... This is probably the reason why we should start here, because I started in law enforcement very early. Okay. I started at age 16.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what's that program called?
So I didn't do any of like the DARE program. If I did DARE was like elementary school. And then
that was a thing over there?
Oh, it was.
Okay.
Of course it was. Drug free. Are you kidding me?
I let DARE down so badly. Like I feel bad that I made all the pledges to DARE and I let him down hard.
It's all good. I let the Mormons down, so we all have to let somebody down at some point,
Can't please everybody.
Exactly.
So you're 16 years old. You're getting into law enforcement. What made you want to even get interested in law enforcement?
It's so funny. I wanted to do it ever since I was a kid. Itty bitty. I used to
Do you
sit
have
like
cops
up
in your
next.
family?
No, I'm the
Really?
first one. Yeah, yeah. So that's what makes it even like more super. Because I didn't realize. I guess I sort of did, but I didn't realize how odd that is. That there's no family in it, and I was just so gung-ho. Like, I was just like, this is what I want to do. I used to be that kid that would sit right up next to the TV on the floor and just be watching Cops, like, every day, right? Like, I loved it. There was something about it. The ability to help people was huge. And I will say, like, my childhood was definitely sheltered for sure, but I think
Like
that,
in all ways, or it's just...
I think in all ways. Honestly, it wasn't until I got involved in law enforcement that I realized how sheltered I was, right? My parents, super good parents, like, honestly, I would say more chill, like on the chill scale of Mormon parents. I mean, super devout, right, in leadership. So, like, my dad was a bishop at one point. My mom was a Relief Society
Oh, so
president.
you were, like, about it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
like,
God.
Oh, yeah, we went to church every Sunday. I went to, like, the youth group stuff during the week, all that stuff, like the campouts during the summer.
Really quick, I am Catholic by default.
Okay.
Do you guys have that same guilt, or is
Oh.
it something else?
100%.
Yeah?
It is so full of shame and guilt. We could do a whole podcast on just Mormonism, honestly. I like don't even know where I left off, honestly.
Well, because
Mormonism.
and that's the thing, guys. We're going down so many rabbit holes. I brought the biggest shovel I could today because I wanted to make sure I caught every single hole today.
Yeah, it's a lot.
You were talking about because you were
I was saying that my
law
parents were in
enforcement,
it.
and you're in it.
Yeah, and I was saying we could do a whole podcast about freaking Mormonism because my parents, like I say, like they definitely are they're still devout, but I would say they're on the chiller scale. Like I had friends that couldn't even hang out unless they read scriptures and shit, you know, like.
So if I had to come over, like I had to read. How much roughly do you think?
So like my friends would have to read before they could even leave their house. Some of my friends.
Would they quiz me?
I don't even freaking. It was crazy. Like some of my friends were even drug tested by their parents. Freaking crazy. Like
That's
really, really
aggressive.
intense. Like so aggressive. You know. Like I don't know. The whole culture in Utah is very interesting that way, and I think that's why. Like I say, it wasn't until I got into law enforcement that I was like, holy crap, I have been so sheltered. Like, and I was a good kid. I will say that. Like because I had such audacious goals to become a police officer, I did not like I was friends with everybody. I never ran with a clique or whatever. I was friends with everyone. You know, like the hopefully you're okay if I tell this story, but
Yeah,
like
go ahead.
one of my friends, right, he asked me, he was like, hey, will you drive me to work today? And I was like, sure, no big deal, you know. We're in the car, and he's like, yeah. He's talking about how he's selling cocaine to this group of girls that we go to high school with, right? They were known as, like, the brownies. They were, like, these, like, totally fake tanned out, jet black hair, like, white girls that were just, like, so, like, everybody wanted them, whatever, which is totally fine. But he's sitting there talking to me, like, and I'm just sitting there, like,
goddamn
damn. Like, right? Exactly. I'm like, damn, this guy's just telling me about his plug. He's telling me about all this stuff. And I'm just like, wow, okay. Like, but that's so normal for me. Like, I don't know what it is, but people just tell me their deepest, darkest secrets. They tell me their whole life story. Like, I will go to a random bar by myself, and it's like I learn everyone's story, and we all become friends. It's, like, the weirdest thing.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have 3 brothers, no sisters.
So I guess I'm trying to figure out what made you so independent.
You know, my parents, I will say this, my parents, they have a big group of friends that they grew up with that all of us, like those friends of theirs are kind of like all of our second parents. And one thing they would always say to us when we were younger, right, because they all had kids too, so we'd all get together randomly. And honestly, they would say to my parents and even to us when we were kids, they're like, man, you guys can just hold like an adult conversation. Like you guys are so mature and able to conversate with adults in a way that feels like interesting and like we want to conversate with you and we want to know what's coming out of your mouth next, you know? I don't know. My parents, both of them are entrepreneurs. All of their siblings on my mom's side, they're all entrepreneurs as well. Dad's side, not as much. My dad's side's extremely Mormon.
And actual entrepreneurs or like hustlers?
Actual.
Huge difference.
Actual.
Ah.
In fact, I would say, so like on my dad's side, our family is, quote unquote, the most wealthy. On my mom's side, we're the least wealthy. And on my mom's side, right, like her sister owned a wedding dress shop, a couple of them, and now her daughter runs those. I have an uncle that worked in the banking world for a long time. I have another uncle that has started businesses, and then also I know that he right now, from what I know, because I feel like he's changed careers a couple of times, he literally does huge long-term big sales for banks, where he sells all of their tech to them, and those are like $2 million deals.
That's a lot of money, friend.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. I don't know how much he's getting from all of those, but
just to produce that much revenue is crazy.
It is crazy. It's so crazy. And then her brother, one of them, he's got a little bit of I would say like adult like autism. So he's a super cute guy. He's really cute, but he's the only one that I would say like he worked at Walmart, and he's so cute. He'll tell you, I retired from Walmart, you know. So he's a door greeter and stuff like that, like super super sweet. But yeah, all of her siblings have just been super super successful. And my mom, she owned a scrapbooking store for 16 years.
Holy shit.
And before that, she actually started that business out of our basement. And I worked for both of my parents, right? So I would help her make these cards, and she'd sell them to boutiques around, and they're handmade cards. So we'd sit and make those in the basement. My dad is a real estate broker, and he got into the worst part of real estate, in my opinion. He manages HOAs. And there's, there's a lot of money in it for sure.
But the rules, though, right?
Oh my gosh! Well, it's just the people that are pissed, right? They just like don't want to.
They want to find something to be mad about, right? I don't know, man. I just see on the internet shit about HOAs, and I'm like, it just makes me nervous.
Oh, totally. Well, and here's the thing too. Like HOAs are really supposed to serve that community, right? So any of the contracts that my dad has, he's got a long crew that takes care of everything. He's got all the maintenance people. You know, he enforces any of like the easement laws and anything to do with obviously like the aesthetics, but also with like making sure the bills are paid and meeting with the homeowners association and like the presidents and stuff. So, you know, it's just really hard work and dealing with a lot of people that are just not happy all the time, you know? So
I get it. No, I totally get it. And I guess that lifestyle, I guess, feels so you're coming from all these like different backgrounds. I'm trying to pinpoint first of all, and I'm gonna put a gun to my head right now.
Absolutely fine.
How old are you?
How old am I? I'm 33.
33. Okay, awesome, amazing. You don't look 33, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank
because I'm like trying to pinpoint by the shit you're telling me, and so when you say like high school and then the brownies, I'm like, where's she going with this? And then I'm like, okay, I'm thinking like Jersey Shore type of girl. You know what I'm saying? Like that was the era. And so I'm trying to pinpoint.
They actually looked like that for sure.
Yeah, and I love that. Like I would love to get spray tanned on my face. I love that shit. But like I'm trying to figure out what era you're from. But I'm also 33, so that's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah. So we're 90s babies.
What month?
July.
August.
Ah, nice.
Like, are you technically a Leo or technically on the other side?
Cancer.
Cancer. So like you're mad emotional, but you don't tell nobody.
100%.
But like you have a huge shell over you, right?
Oh yeah.
Like you're not gonna let nobody in.
No, you know, it's funny. I think I have definitely like every aspect of a Cancer for sure. Like I'm very.
Do you believe in that stuff?
Yes and no. You know, I think with my background in law enforcement, right, I'm very, very, very practical. Very much, right? Like you have to, like, in my mind, when it comes to spirituality, you have to marry science, logic, and spirituality together. It can't just be one or the other. And so, do I believe in all that stuff? I think that there's an element of truth in all things. That's how I feel about it.
And so going back to really quick, now you're 16, you get interested in law enforcement. You just for some reference too, I don't like the show Cops.
Yeah.
I have a weird fear of the show Cops. It's like an irrational fear of cops, not like the show specifically.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember back in sometime in like the early 2000s, there was an episode of Cops where they mixed the X-Files with Cops.
No, I did not know about this.
Do you remember that episode? Yeah. So and it was all like found footage, an episode of like found footage episode. And then you see, was it Mulder and Scully just walking around in the frame, and then they're just like, we found the chupacabra or something, or the wolf person. And I'm just sitting there just like, holy shit, because it's Cops, it's real. It's supposed to be real.
Exactly.
And now these characters are real too. So that means aliens are canon now, which scared the shit out of me, you know? And this episode I remember I was watching, and there was this part where this guy was found in this alleyway with his like he got cut by it looked like a dog. I thought it was a big dog. But it was like the wolf man, and I got so scared I would not leave the house for 6 months.
What?
Yeah, dead ass.
6 months?
Yeah, I stayed in the house. I was like, I don't want to get scratched by a wolf man.
Oh my God, bless your heart. What the heck?
That was so much fun because I was like,
goodness.
wow. No, it was fun because X-Files is now canon in my mind.
Right.
It's all canon events. So everything that happened in that show can happen to me, and I didn't like any of it for 1 second. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like, The fact that you're saying your cops kind of triggered me a little bit. I was like, oh my god.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, here's the thing. Trigger warning. Trigger warning through this whole freaking episode. I'm sure that there's going to be some triggers that happen.
And so you went through this, and then you graduated, right? You graduated high school.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, while I was in high school, right? So I took a law enforcement class in high school for my high school cop.
JORCT, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't do that.
That's what I thought you were doing.
Yeah, no. And that was like the ROTC, I think, in Utah.
There you go.
Yeah. No, I didn't do any of that. I was in law enforcement class. I became really good friends with our high school cop. In fact, I would consider him like a second dad to me, honestly.
That's bold.
Yeah. Truly, like I mean, even to this day, like we stay in contact. And, you know, he came to me one time and he goes, you know, because I took his class, then I became his TA the next semester. And he came to me and he was like, hey, Nat, the chief is hiring for a private ballet instructor for his daughter. I want you to go interview. And I was like, oh, okay. So at the time, right, I have danced since, you know, the age of 2 or 3. And so I was doing competition dance through a dance studio. I was dancing at the high school and stuff. So
why don't you start with that? What the fuck don't you do?
That's the thing that's so weird about my life sometimes is until I talk to someone else, I actually don't realize all of the parts of my life that are like, people are like, what? Huh? And I honestly, like, and I really haven't noticed that until somebody sits across from me and I'm like, oh yeah, maybe that is kind of weird. Like
history and dance.
Yes.
Did you get that job?
I did. And that is honestly what sparked off so much of everything. I interviewed with him and he was like, okay. So I would pick up his daughter from school. I would bring her to the precinct, which happened to also be partnered in with a courthouse. I'd teach her ballet lessons in the bottom of the courthouse. And I can't remember how many days per week I was doing this, but it was quite often. I also worked at Brighton Ski Resort. So I had dreads at the time.
Amazing. You got that life.
Yep. So I had dreads at the time, hung out up in the mountains quite a bit. And I also worked for both my parents too, right? So I worked at my mom's retail shop.
Are you rebelling at this point? Or because you sound like,
no. When
you say dreads, I feel like you're rebelling, but also you're doing everything by the book right now.
Yes. I did everything by the book.
Okay.
Everything. Like I wasn't judgmental towards anyone that made their own choices, you know, but my parents instilled like the fear of God in me. Let's just be real. Right. Like, and definitely coming
that
from.
Guy's fucking scary.
He is a scary man. What the hell? And because of that, right, you know, when I got this opportunity, I took it super seriously, right? Because I'm interviewing with a chief. This is the department I want to work for. And so funny, right? I'm in and out of the precinct. Well, in the precinct, all of the detectives, they fly desks there, right? They've got their offices there and things like that. I knew all of the traffic cops in the area because they'd come to the high school sometimes. We'd all go to lunch sometimes. And so one day I was leaving from that ballet lesson and one of the detectives walked up to me and he's like, hey, can I ask a favor of you? And I was like, sure. Like, what's up? You know, he's like, would you be willing to help us out in an operation? And I was like, sure, you know, like, of course I'm freaking out on the inside, but I'm like trying to play it cool. I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is amazing. So I say yes to it. And they're like, okay, so you're going to meet us on this day here at the precinct. I was like, okay, cool. They're like, hey, could you also like put like your dreads back in and whatever? I was like, sure, that's fine.
Like you're going undercover.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep. And
how old are you again?
16.
16 going undercover. Love where this is going.
Yeah.
Keep going.
So one thing I want to preface this with is I know everyone wants to think this was like 21 Jump Street. It wasn't. You know, I wasn't buying from.
So you weren't out here finger popping people's assholes?
Nope. Sorry. But I definitely, you know, I didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into until I sat down, and, you know, and they call it a briefing, right?
Right.
We sit in this room with all of these detectives' desks, and they hand me, you know, a stack of paper. And the very first cover is the case number, right? You flip it over. The next page is a picture of the suspect that we're going after. And then the next page is his rap sheet, right? He's wanted for aggravated assault, DV, SA, all of the things that you can imagine, drug smuggling, like all that stuff. And so, of course, I'm sitting here reading this, and I'm like, holy shit, you know, and they're like, okay, you know, and then the next page is an aerial view of a parking lot and where a smoke shop is. And the next page is where all of the undercover cop cars are going to be, and then where all the undercover detectives will be standing.
This is like a whole thing.
Oh, it's a whole
ass thing.
Listen, I was like 007 Mission Impossible all of a sudden, and I was just sitting there thinking to myself, I'm freaking out inside, but I'm just like totally calm on the outside, just like.
So
but
your buddy knew he wanted you from the get go. Then. Like,
oh yeah,
like they knew that your buddy. Like they knew like this is gonna be the perfect one.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
Cool.
because they trusted me. Right? Because
Fair.
I was a good kid. I knew what I wanted to do. I had extreme like ambition and goals to get into this department. I wanted to work for them, and they knew it, right? And I wasn't like a pick me. Does that make sense? Like I wasn't so over the top that they're like, oh my God, shut this chick up. Like she's freaking annoying.
You don't give me pick me vibes.
Well, and I think on the inside, if I was to be honest, I'm over there like, pick me, like please, like I want to do this
Where's
so
that
bad.
show though?
Well, I think it's just, I just wanted to be part of something bigger than myself, you know? And really, I would say that the biggest thing that my parents instilled, and I would even say, you know, my dad, bless his heart, he's a really, really good man, but man, he's so nice and he wants to help everybody and he's been taken advantage of more than I can, you know,
Always happens with the nicest ones.
It does, and unfortunately that's been totally instilled in me. So later on in the story, I'm sure we'll go over a couple of those incidences, but, you know, we're sitting there and then they have photocopies of money, right? Because it's all from the government, the DEA is involved, all that stuff, and so... You know, they're like, all right, and we're going to wire you up. Here's the code words. You can't go past this threshold. Because what they wanted.
What kind of code words? Like if you're in trouble?
Yeah.
Oh, so
Yep.
you had like safety words?
Yes.
Like molasses.
Yeah, yeah.
What
I
was your
can't even
safety word?
remember. I can't
You
even
know?
remember, dude. No.
Like I love when when I fuck around with people, like I'd be like, "What's your safe word?" I'm like molasses.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. That's
To this
hilarious.
day, I'll be like molasses.
Molasses. Yeah, that's great. I love that. But yeah, they wired me up. I was wearing 2 wires, and we pretty much here's the whole gist of it, right? So it was me buying marijuana at a smoke shop. The reason why they wanted to go after this guy is because he had been selling to kids my age at my high school and a couple of others.
Oh,
But they
okay.
wanted him because he was known for assaulting
Yeah.
the teenagers that were buying from him.
That's fair.
So it really wasn't about the drugs at that point. It was more so about getting this guy
This
and
dude's a
catching
full-on
him.
scumbag.
Oh, totally. Such a bad guy. And I think that's something that a lot of people think that, you know, people are after these like low-level drugs. I know obviously back in the day, back during this time, like, you know, marijuana was a big deal in Utah. It still is, unfortunately.
It's not legalized yet, right?
No, not at
Okay.
all. They now do medical cards there, but it's still, it's not legal. And, you know, and that's kind of why I want to just preface it with that, because I think a lot of people think that going and doing drug buys, especially undercover at that age, I think it would be stigmatized to say, oh yeah, they just want to get the marijuana out of Utah. But really it wasn't that. It was a way deeper. And what I learned through my undercover career is it's always deeper. It's not just about the drugs. And so like it always makes me laugh when I think about this, because again, I was a good kid. I didn't dabble in any of that. I didn't have any judgment towards people that did, but you know, I didn't know anything. So I walk into this smoke shop, right? And I remember as I was walking in, I saw one of the undercovers. I'd never seen him outside of police.
Are you nervous?
Oh, I was.
Like, do you know what you're getting into? There has to be some like shit can go bad right now. Do you
Oh,
feel
totally.
that?
Totally. But honestly, the excitement overpowers that. I'll be honest. Because, of course, like in my mind, I'm just like, I can't
Throw
believe
me
that
in,
I'm
Chief.
here. This is crazy. Like, what the heck?
Yeah.
And I saw one of the guys, and he looked so scary undercover, man. Like, I was just like, dang. Like, you look like a freaking criminal. This is crazy. So I walk into the smoke shop, and the very first thing, right, like, I'm just looking. They're like, oh, yeah, like, let us know if you have any questions, whatever. And I remember looking, and I was just thinking to myself, like, I know nothing about this. So I ask, I'm like, hey, what's that? And they're like, it's a grinder. And I was like, oh, sick,
Okay,
yeah. So I didn't even know what that was. And I was like, oh, my God, I am in over my fucking head right now. I know at one point I ended up having to say the code word right because I couldn't pass a certain threshold. And I don't remember exactly what happened. I just know that I was pulled out of there by several of the detectives and I was thrown into the chief's undercover. And he looked at me and he was like, you good? And I'm like, I'm so good. And he was just like, you want to do this again? I was like, if you'll have me, I will do anything you ask me to do. They're like, okay, sounds
Yo,
good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, so
Fucking A.
it was
Your
crazy.
first operation was a success,
Oh, yeah.
and they got the guy.
Yeah, I to be honest, I don't even remember because one of the things that I will say is when you're undercover, and especially at that age, right? It's my first operation. I didn't get to know the outcome of that one. But I will tell you, I went back to the same smoke shop and did it again. So clearly they were building up evidence to go and get him.
Oh, I see.
So
Do you have a character now? Or were you playing yourself? Or like, because, you know, this is the one time you can, like, I can be somebody else if I want to. Who am I gonna be? Or am I overthinking? I wasn't even there, and I already think of what character I would be, and I would be like, probably be as like dumb as hell, and I'd be like, 2 marijuanas, sir.
Yeah.
You know, or I'll walk in and be like, shopkeep, 2 marijuanas.
Right? You know what? It's funny. I think because I'm so unassuming, right? Like nobody would look at me and be like, oh, cop. Even to this day, I don't feel like I dress like a cop. I don't talk like a cop. I never did. Even when I was in law enforcement, full-fledged police officer, to be honest, the only people that recognized me outside of uniform were the moms of the dudes I would arrest. They'd see me in the grocery store and be like, don't I know you? And I'm like, no, you don't know me. And they're like, no, I think you arrested my son. I'm like, I'm sorry. And they're like, no, thank you so much. I'm like, what the hell? This is crazy,
Fucking
you know?
weird, yeah.
So weird. And that's, you run that risk when you work in law enforcement. But I definitely didn't ever want to come across like that was my only identity. Even though I will say internally, it definitely was. And because of starting at such a young age, right, I was doing all of these operations, and it quickly moved. After I graduated high school, I went to college for a semester, maybe 2 semesters, and I got my first job at the same department as a dispatcher.
Okay.
So I dropped out of college and I was like, see ya. Like, I'm done with this bullshit. I'm not going to continue doing this. And I was going to school for psychology and law enforcement. And I'm just like not a school person. Like I'm very hands-on, very visual learner, very ADHD.
Same. I feel that.
So it's very difficult for me. Like, and I'm very creative too. Like, I think that's something that is hard in a classroom, right? Because like reading, no, I don't want to do it.
Yeah, I don't like reading either, and I live by Ellen DeGeneres' words: "Read when necessary."
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and read only when necessary. And I, as much as a piece of shit she is now,
yeah,
but I still hold on to that even today in my job in the medical field. I'm like, read when necessary. Like, I don't want to read. Like, teach me how to do shit.
Absolutely. No, I think that's amazing because honestly, again, like I know I retain it more when it's happening and like when I'm doing hands-on, right? And at the time, being as young as I was, getting into that, I had no idea what I was walking into, really, truly. Being 18 years old, having this really adult job suddenly. I was still asked by the same group of detectives, the Metro Gang Unit, the U.S. Marshals, the DEA. I worked with that same group of detectives and moved into a way more serious undercover role in buying, ecstasy, party drugs and stuff, going out to the Great Saltaire and buying at the raves.
I know you said it wasn't. That's actually the premise of 21 Jump Street. So like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you actually were doing it, except you did the job like right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I didn't do it in the high school. Like, it was not to target like fellow students, right? It was to target the bad guy. It wasn't about what are the students doing? How does this work? Like,
do your friends know you're doing this, or is this totally a secret?
Nobody knows. I would say even to this day.
How do you keep that from your friends when little Becky so-and-so wants to hang out with you and you're like, I can't, I'm doing something, but you're actually like doing full-ass operations? Like,
it's difficult, but at the same time, I think because a lot of my like fellow students, right, they were all kind of off kind of doing like the kid thing. Yeah. I was doing such adult things at the time that they were used to me working because I had 3 jobs, So for me to be doing something and being busy, it wasn't that shocking. That's why I'm like low-key
really jealous of your childhood. Like, I always thought myself of wanting to be mature also, but like the best I can come up with at 16 is like lying about the girls we finger banged at the time.
Right.
And like that's was important to me. Mm-hmm. And you're out here just like doing full adult work. That's really impressive. Like, what the fuck? Who are you? What the fuck?
It's weird. I feel like what's so interesting is I feel like I have like an old soul, but I'm also like, I don't know, it feels weird saying this, but I'm also like, I'm super fun, like bubbly. Like, I very much like enjoy life. Like, I'm very grateful for the life that I have. And so it is interesting. Like, I don't know. I was so like full of like total excitement for what I was able to be a part of. Just lots of gratitude, I think. And I think for me, I knew how serious it was because I knew how seriously I wanted to progress my, whole career, that in my mind, it wasn't worth making it a big deal for other people because it was such a big deal for me. It wasn't worth possibly risking anything coming through or falling through. Mm-hmm. You can't put that kind of trust or at least I didn't feel like I could. Not on any of my friends. I didn't feel like I could tell anybody, you know.
And how's your family handling this too? 'Cause
You know, it's so funny. My mom,
especially if your dad like is this big person in the church. You know, your mom's this way too. I guess my first thing is safety, right? Like, I don't want my baby girl to go out there, kind of thing. Like, but because you never know.
it's true. Well, when I told my mom, I remember I ran into her store and I was like, "You'll never freaking guess what just happened!" Like, oh my gosh, and she's looking at me just like, "What the," you know? And I was just like, "This is oh my gosh, this is my opportunity." Da, da, da. And she's like, "Okay." And I think in the beginning, I think she was supportive for sure. Of course, like I don't think she grasped how big this actually was, to be honest with you. Like,
do parents ever though?
No,
I feel
not
like
at
parents
all.
never understand what we're doing.
Well, and
Like,
imagine how sheltered I was.
Yeah.
Imagine, like, my parents don't freaking know.
bro, I'm 33 years old. My parents to this day, they're like, he plays music and he's on the radio, I think. I don't know. But I'm like, yeah, it's sure. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's it, Mom, Dad. Good job.
That's
Good
it.
job.
That's
Yeah.
the gist.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, I think that was the thing is when I was called to do kind of the more intense stuff, right? Because, again, that operation, we had done a couple of, you know, hits at that same smoke shop and stuff. And when I was asked, let's see, at the time I was a dispatcher, so I was 18 at the time. I was working for the department. And so I even had a place on my time card that I would actually log time differently for my undercover work. So when I was
you're getting paid for this too.
Oh, now I'm getting paid for it.
Okay.
When I'm employed now, I'm getting paid for it.
Hell yeah.
In high school, I wasn't paid for it.
Okay, I
If
see.
they did, I don't remember that. Like maybe they threw me like a 20 under the table. I don't think so. But you know, when they called me for the more serious assignment, you know, that was like, hey, and like you're going to be under this, you know, because you can't volunteer for your employer in Utah. That's illegal.
No
So
shit.
yeah.
Why? I mean, I don't like.
It's just it's an at-will state. They've got like super different like employee like laws and regulations, and so you
okay.
have to be paid if you're working. So especially because I was being asked to work, like I would have to put it under a different code on my time card, and you know I would also have to take either switch days with other coworkers or whatever to be able to do that, or take PTO, or kind of move things around basically. And because I still had to get my 40 hours in at dispatch, and so I mind you, again, I've never been to a rave in my life. I haven't done any drug in my life. I haven't
But
drank.
you have dreads.
I know, seriously, I know, right? And at the time, like I had just chopped my hair off, which is like, oh my gosh, how traumatic. I had just chopped my hair off, and for reference, my hair is down past my butt right now. So my hair's been long most of my life, but I don't know what happened. I just cut all my hair off at the time, and it was like up to my shoulders, and I was involved with bodybuilding. I had like been contracted out with a chick from, I'm pretty sure Katerina's from Russia. Russia? Can't remember. Anyways, I was doing a bunch of different like modeling gigs with a few of my friends. And so it's just so fun. Like when I think back to this time in my life, I'm like, what the hell was I doing? Like what a weird
Bodybuilding
time.
too?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm gonna just say what the fuck to everything
Yeah.
you say now, because like, and you're gonna be like, and then I was an astrophysicist the other day. Like, that's so no, because you're the person like. You're like my ideal person. Like you're like
Aw.
me in a way, in the sense that like you wear different hats, and if you don't, like I love wearing different hats. Like I'll do anything I can to wear a hat. Like this last year, I took the classes and I took out my boating license. I'm a captain. I don't
Good
have a
for
boat,
you.
but I just wanted to be a captain.
That's cool.
A couple years ago, I wanted to be an ordained minister because I wanted to marry people. I wanted to
amazing.
marry drunk people outside of the bar
That's
and make it
amazing.
legal.
That's
Because like I
amazing.
like trolling people that way.
I love that.
And so I got all the paperwork done through the state of Oregon. I'm an ordained minister. I have all these official marriage licenses and everything.
That's amazing.
And I never made anything of it because people were, like I said, really shy.
Yeah.
So I guess just like tomorrow I'm going to be an astronaut. Like that's possible for us, people like us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And you can do anything you put your mind to. I believe that fully. Like, truly. Here, I'm going to go grab her coals. Is that okay?
Of course. So, like we're saying, you're a badass. You're out here you're in these streets, but not in the way like normal. I don't want to say normal people, but like you're like average young adults are in like the way we're in these streets. You're not there in these streets. And I'm only up till 18. Like we're up until 18, so we're not even like halfway there. Any regrets so far in your life, or are you just like taking everything in stride?
Honestly, I loved everything about my start in law enforcement. I think later on, it'll pose some of the issues it caused for me psychologically. But, you know, at the time, I would say the only regret that I have, and I've talked to a lot of my close friends about this as far as just like close girlfriends that I've been best friends with for, 15, 16 years. And even like my, one of my very, very dearest friends, he's been doing my hair since I was 15. We met dancing for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, actually. He's
That's
gay
lit.
and just so fabulous, and I love him to death. Shout out, Eric. I love you. We met dancing on national TV, just
No way.
crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
What was that like? And what was that for?
It was for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. They used to do
What's that?
this. So that is the choir for the Mormon Church. They are like world renowned, which is crazy. But they used to do this Christmas broadcast every Christmas. I met Jane Seymour. She's a famous opera singer. And I also got to hang out and chill with Natalie Cole, which is Nat King Cole's daughter. She is the coolest freaking person on this planet. She's the sweetest woman. It was incredible. And so honestly, like dancing too, like I had like really, really cool opportunities through that. And I still have, all my dance friends that still friends with all of them. And all of these friends of mine that I've had for over the years. When I was in high school, I had a high school sweetheart. And he and I were like best friends. Everybody used to.
Excuse me while I throw up.
I know. Seriously, we were such fun. We were best friends to start out with, and as far as like, it's so funny. You want to know? He noticed me when I was putting gas in my car, and he went to a different high school at the time. He ended up transferring high schools the next year, even
Because of you.
I don't know if it was fully.
It is
I
because
mean,
of-
maybe.
Oh,
I don't
no.
know. Maybe. I'm not sure. I mean, his best friend went to high school with us and stuff too.
Man, fuck that best friend. He came for you.
Well, and it's just funny. I mean, I took auto mechanics all throughout high school. And so we all had auto shop together and stuff like that. So it was fun. And so we were like, we had this super fun group of friends. Like we used to go and do super fun stuff. I worked at the resorts with him and his best friend. And it was such a chill time. Like everybody used to call us mom and dad. That's like, everybody thought we were all going to get, we were going to get married, all that stuff. And I would say that my only regret, and this is kind of where I would say I didn't have judgment of anyone else, but I was so concerned because marriage in Mormonism is like such a big deal, right?
Yeah,
Like
it is.
it's a
Oh my
huge
God.
deal. And not only is it a big deal, but like you're supposed to save yourself for marriage, right? And that way you can get married in the temple, be worthy to go through the temple and have like an eternal marriage. And so, he grew up LDS, but he wasn't active. His parents had divorced and some things had happened with that. And so he kind of had a bad taste in his mouth, sort of, but also he was willing to go to church with me. So we would go to church together. And even when I was in college, I would actually come and stay at his mom's house for the weekend. My parents would never know. Hi, parents. They would never know, but I would stay like all weekend there. And then I'd go back to
But
college.
because you're in your, nothing would happen, correct?
Uh,
God damn.
No.
You sinner.
Well, I think part of the story that's missing in this, when I was 17, I found out I couldn't have kids. And that was a pretty
That's
big deal.
hard. What the
Yeah,
fuck?
it was a pretty big deal. I hadn't started my period, and so my pediatrician, right, up to that point, they were like, oh yeah, like, you're super athletic, so maybe it's just that. So by the time I was like about to hit my 17th birthday, he was like, why don't we just send you to an OBGYN and just have you, get checked out? And I was like, okay, So went to the OBGYN for the first time. I don't know how graphic we want to get, but
As graphic as you want, but first of all, like, okay, go ahead.
you're fine. No, what's
Go-
the question?
No, it's just, I'm still trying to wrap my, being at 17, only because, like, I work in healthcare, right? And
Oh,
I
you
worked
do?
in
So do
healthcare for the last 12 years. And so I see people who don't want kids, and those people who don't want kids, like, are, they're a certain type of way. But then you see the people who actually want them and can't have them. It's just such a weird experience for me to this day, to, like, talk to them, And so you're out here being 17, your life's starting, and then you already get that news right away. Like, I guess now including God into this, do you get a bad taste in your mouth?
I mean, I think that my biggest thing is growing up in a religion where women's worth is literally around being a wife and a mother, right? The whole premise is to multiply and replenish the earth. That is Mormonism in a nutshell. It's all about families can be together forever, about how, that you get married and you're married for eternity, not just for this life. Like it's a very, very big deal. And so when you're a woman in the church, like your role truly is to be a wife and a mother. So now here I am 17 and I'm faced with the fact that I don't fit that box. Like I can't have my own kids, you know, and that was, you know, I don't think at the time I knew how much it would affect me in my adult life.
Is there denial at this point?
A little bit. I think, you know, it was funny. I can still remember where I was driving. I had this moment when I was 16. One of my friends, she asked me for a tampon, and I was like, oh, I'm so sorry I don't have one, because I didn't have a period, so I didn't have one, right? So I'm driving home from high school. I'm on the freeway up on, like, Wasatch Boulevard, and I can still remember it, like, vividly. I had this thought of, like, maybe I can't have kids. And I don't know why. I don't know. It was just this random feeling of like maybe I'm like like something's wrong, or like I don't know, you know, I'm not sure. And so when I was sent to the OBGYN, mind you, right, I'm not sexually active, and one of the biggest things in Utah, right, because there's so many Mormons, a lot of times like girls are not, right, or if they are, they're lying about it. Fair. So you know, so here I am, like I've never been to the OB before, and you know, so it's like, okay, you get undressed, like the bottom half, like whatever, the sheet goes over, she walks in, and the first thing she says to me is, all right, spread them like your mom told you not to.
Jesus,
that's the
amazing.
First thing that she says to me, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah, because it's just like harsh, you know, it's so abrupt, it's so harsh, right? Like it's like I'm coming from a super religious background. She has to know, I mean, they've had this OBGYN practice for 10 plus years in this part of the valley. They see girls like me all the time. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, like that's crazy. And I didn't realize
that's a weird out of pocket thing to say. Hold on, I know, like
what bedside manner is that?
Weird out of pocket,
yeah.
like spread them like your
mom told you not to.
Like I don't know, man. That's
is that not so wild?
I was
like,
think about
what?
You tonight, and that saying that's gonna stick with me. That one's one that's gonna stick.
Yeah, it's wild. And honestly, and this is why I'm saying too, like lots of trigger warnings. Like if there's any type of medical PTSD that's out there, any type of sexual assault type stuff that's out there, definitely skip this part for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, for me, you know, she was asking the questions, whatever, and trying to put, I don't even know what that freaking instrument is, but she's trying to put that
speculum.
Yeah, the speculum. There we go. There you see, it tells you how yeah, there you go. So she's trying to insert the speculum, and she can't. And you know, obviously, like again, I'm not sexually active, so I don't think it's as surprising because right, some girls are tighter than others, whatever. And so they call my mom in, and they call the other OBGYN in. So because it's like a double practice of two OBs. And they're sitting there, and I can just feel like the tension in the room is starting to become quite thick. And in my mind, I'll tell you, because there is so much PTSD from this, I only remember parts of it. I don't remember the whole thing. I remember snippets of what happened. And you know, what I do know is that she had like pulled out a Q-tip and basically was like, hey, I just want you to know, like, we can only fit the speculum in, you know, this much, right? And it was like basically like the tip of the Q-tip and like a little bit further down. She's like, you know, we don't know what's going on. And again, I don't remember what exactly happened after that, but they were trying to put it in, and I was crying because it was so painful. My mom is crying, right? Because she's just like, what's going on?
This is
like,
your first examination,
my first examination ever.
Oh my God, horrible.
Ever. It was so traumatic. And then all of a sudden, and this is where I'm saying trigger warning, all of a sudden I feel, and there was no warning at all, I feel the other OB stick her arm up my ass, and I can feel her hand inside of me touching her other hand that's outside of me through my stomach. I can feel her fingers touching from inside me and outside of me. And of course I'm like screaming, and it's awful and everything else. Let me take a break really quick. How long he's gonna be in the office for. I think he was saying 20. So yeah,
all right,
he's been teaching me sign language, so
hell yeah.
I definitely, all the sign language I know is from him. And so there's certain things I do know, and there's certain things I don't know, but he's been teaching me slowly, little by little. So yeah, so but I know that was a pretty intense part of the story to walk away from.
No, you're good. And we can backtrack on that, because basically where we were leaving off is you're essentially getting violated by this doctor.
Yes.
She was knuckle deep in you.
Yeah.
And you're remembering flashbacks. So I guess I guess go off where she's in you, but she's touching your stomach as well.
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
I knew immediately. And it's funny, right? Because, like, I just remember a lot of chaos. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of chaos. My mom screaming, right? Like, crying. Like, we're both crying, right? Like, and of course, like, I'm freaking the hell out because, right? Like, I'm not sexually active. I'm being completely violated.
And you did everything by the books. Why you?
Literally.
Okay.
Just so crazy. And once things kind of calmed down a little bit, the only other thing I remember, because I don't remember exactly what happened after that, to be fair, like I'm totally blacked out at that point. I have no idea what happened afterwards. But I do remember once things were like where we were having conversations and people weren't crying and screaming and freaking out anymore, I do remember them saying, okay, we're going to send you off for ultrasound. We just want to make sure everything's okay. Mm-hmm. And I knew in my mind, in that moment, I was like, no, I can't have kids. Like, I know it, right? Without anything else being said, I knew in my mind there is no way I can have kids. I just know it. And so I think one thing I can say, and I love my parents to death, and we've had conversations since, when I got together with my ex-husband, and we'll go over that story at some point. But, it's interesting. They were so, you could just tell they were devastated, right? And I knew when we went for ultrasound, my dad was there, my mom was there, and they put the ultrasound on there. They find both of my ovaries, and they're measuring them and things like that. Well, when they go find the uterus, it's just, there's nothing. There's just nothing there. And that was, again, like I had already known before, right? Like in my mind, I was prepared for this news because it's like I knew internally, like, before that, like something, I was different in some way. I didn't know how, right? Like I had no idea. I just thought I couldn't have kids, but this was going to alter the path of my life, honestly, forever. Because, what type of healthcare are you in?
I've been in MA for 12 years.
And do you work in a specific specialty?
I did pediatrics for most of it, almost 10 years. I did endocrinology for a little bit, and then now I'm just doing primary care.
Okay. So did you ever do like any REI or? Mm-mm. Okay. So just for a quick anatomy lesson, right? Your ovaries have fallopian tubes that are connected to the uterus, which goes to the vaginal canal, which then, right, the external is the labia and all of that. Well, if you don't have a uterus, you don't have a vaginal canal. So now we come to the part as to why they couldn't fit the speculum. Because the depth was so small. So now I'm meeting back with the OBGYNs. And
Did you ever have like problems in the bathroom?
No, you're fine. This is probably going to answer your question.
Like, would you ever get like UTIs or things like
that?
No,
thank God. Oh my gosh,
nothing.
No.
Because if you have such a small space, but like, not much stuff going in and out, would you find yourself getting infections?
No. No, never did. Even from like all like the like wearing leotards and doing all that, like dancing my whole life. Yeah. I mean, yeast infections maybe like, but like nothing chronic, nothing crazy, like maybe every so often, right? I think that if you're in dance, like you're prone to those no matter what, right? There's too much going on with, your clothing that's not cotton, right? That it is what it is. But we met back with the OBGYNs and they gave me 3 options. And you have to know, this diagnosis, it's called MRKH or vaginal agenesis. There's type 1, type 2. I don't even know what type I am, to be honest. It was so new. Like, these doctors had no idea what they were dealing with. Truly.
Like in general or just like Utah doctors?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's funny, like, because now I work in healthcare, and it's so funny talking to the OBGYNs that I've recruited and placed in hospitals, which is funny. I work in OBGYN. Not having the same knowledge or experience as most females. They were just like, we're so surprised at your experience because you do learn about this in med school. You do. It may be a page or two, but you do learn about this. This is something that we know exists. And it's very rare. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's like, I can't remember what the numbers are. I think now it's like 1 in 5,000 is what it happens to, but it's a very rare condition. And you don't find out until later in your life. What's
your like, on your like, that wouldn't affect your estrogen levels at all? Like, what makes you feminine? Like,
no, because I'm still genetically a female.
Yeah.
I'm completely female. I just am missing a uterus.
Okay,
so I have because I have ovaries, and so I have progesterone, estrogen. I cycle still. I have like ovarian cycles and stuff too. So no, everything, and even my chromosomes, like I'm female. There's nothing, right? And of course, like here I am at 16, I'm questioning that. I'm like, am I like, what is happening, right? Which of course, like there's like, no, don't even go down that path. Like, yes, you like you're female. Don't question those things. Like this, you're just missing. Like an organ just didn't develop in the womb, and we don't know the reasons why. And it's funny because at the University of Utah, there's a road called Mario Capecci, and MRKH stands for, I'm gonna F this up, but it's like something Kucher-Hauser syndrome. I don't know, but it's the 4 doctors that discovered it, and one of the doctors, his name is literally a name of the road there, and they actually have a specialist at the University of Utah, which the University of Utah is pretty renowned. Like they do have specialists in almost every specialty in rare disease and in any condition. So for me, you know, when we met with the OBGYNs again, they were like, you know, we want you to go see the specialist at the University of Utah. Here are your 3 options, right? Because I have vaginal agenesis, right? So if I have a short vaginal canal, what does sexual activity look like, right? So the first option was to have surgery, and I'd be in a wheelchair my senior year of high school. And it's not guaranteed.
Basically to open you up.
Basically to create a canal.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That's brutal.
It is super brutal. And if you know anything about women's health, right, like vaginal tissue is extremely stretchy, right? That's why you can have babies. So I have a start of a vaginal canal, but it's not fully developed. So they're like, we can do surgery, but it's not guaranteed and it can go back. So you can have this extremely invasive surgery with skin grafts and all this other crap, and it may not work.
Okay.
So I passed on that one, right? And I'm like, also a wheelchair for my whole entire senior year? No thanks, I'm good. The second option was dilators. And in Utah, it's funny, it's very common for women to do dilation before they get married because, again, they haven't been sexually active. So in order for your wedding night not to be all bloody, they have them literally dilate with
like
dilators.
To wrap it up, huh?
So they were like, you know, for 5 times 20 minutes a day in a bathtub, you can dilate. I'm like, that sounds like hell. No, thank you. I don't want to do that, right? This has already been so traumatic up to this point. They're like, you know, the third way is you can stretch through sex. That's the way I chose. So, you know, I think that's the whole thing, right?
Do you have a partner at this time? You're
at this time, I was with my high school, or no, I was dating a super toxic guy at the time, actually.
Like, how did he feel about it? Like, hey, babe, we got to do this thing, but
No. And honestly, like, thankfully, we had, like, broken up, like, right around that time. And he was scary. He was super, super scary, like, super controlling. He was, like, growing marijuana in his closet, like, just, like, totally, like, the bad boy, right? Like, I am dating the bad boy. Is this good little Mormon girl, like, and he was so controlling. He made me, like, delete all of, like, my guy friend contacts out of my phone. When we broke up, he would vandalize my car almost every day. In my own driveway at the high school. Like, he was freaking psycho, honestly.
Yikes.
And I can't remember if I think I had met my high school sweetheart, like, right around that time after. I can't remember, honestly. If I'm being straight up, like, that time in my life is kind of blurry because of the diagnosis. But he found out about the diagnosis, and I can't remember how. I think one of my girlfriends, unfortunately, I had told 2 friends, and I think one of my girlfriends had told him. So imagine, throughout my senior year, I'm getting prank phone calls from him saying that I have a dick because he's just such an asshole, right? Which, obviously, it's not true. Like, it's so stupid. It's, like, the dumbest shit ever, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is already such a traumatic, like, experience, and the diagnosis is super life-altering. And now I'm dealing with, like, my ex-boyfriend, like, bullying me. Like, what the fuck, you know?
What a dick.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was honestly crazy. And, you know, so dating my high school sweetheart, I think this is why when you were like, oh, yeah, so, like, what did you and your high school sweetheart when you're staying over on the weekends? You know, we did stuff, but, like, we never full-on had sex.
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to, like, expose too much of, you know, he's a really good guy. Like, I love him to death. Like, still to this day, like, when I see him, it's big hugs. I know his wife. Like, he's got kids now. His family, anytime I'm, like, out of state or even when I'm traveling, if they see me somewhere, they're like, Natalie. Like, the last time I saw his brother and sister-in-law, who are big-time influencers in Utah, Yeah, I was at a coffee shop up in Park City, and they were like, Natalie, like across the, like, and I was like, oh my God, who's looking for me? You know? And they're like, oh my God, it's so good to see you. You're like, just the best family. Like, honestly, like, if there's anything I can say, like, you know, part of my regret was trying to push him into the church so that, like, because I was so worried about, like, how do I be a good example? How do I, you know, and then here we are messing up, right? Quote unquote, messing up, right? And at one point, I had actually gone to a bishop, and I had said, hey, bishop, we did a little bit of Levi lovin', you know, some things happened. Like, they call it necking and petting. It's so fucking weird. So gross. Like, what the hell?
Necking?
Yeah, necking.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, it's
That's
freaking
hot.
weird.
That's hot.
And so I go tell the bishop, right? And he's like, oh, bring him in here. Okay. So I bring him in. Yeah, seriously. So I bring him in there. He tries to make us write down rules. And he tells me I am more responsible for his salvation because I know more. So imagine, like, at this point, I'm like, okay, my testimony in this religion is really starting to dwindle. Because, like...
Sounds like it's, like, your fault now.
Yeah, 100%. It was put on me.
Okay.
It was put on me that, like, we were messing up, quote unquote, right? And so we ended up dating on and off all the way up until the time I was 20. He ended up moving away to North Dakota, and we had broken up at that point, but I was like his only support system. You know, again, I'm not going to get too far into his family stuff, but he just didn't have support. And, you know, we were still like such good friends at the time that like I would totally take calls from him, whatever. Honestly, like if we're being honest, like we were both still so in love with each other. Like it never went away. And you know, during the time that he was gone, I started dating another guy that was super toxic. Didn't know that. I honestly had no idea. So here I am. I'm working for the department at the time. I'm doing the undercover drug buys out at, you know, the raves. I'm working as a dispatcher. I'm going on ride-alongs. And I was involved in a really serious shooting case that was a homicide, suicide. And I was the dispatcher on it, but I was the call taker. So the way that it was set up, you took 911 calls and you were a dispatcher, and that's unique. Usually there's call takers and 911 dispatchers, right, where you are talking to the police as one role or you're taking the call as one role. But at this department, you had to do both. So you had like 7 to 9 computer screens in front of you. When you would push this pedal on the ground, you would be talking to the officers. When you would lift it up, you'd be talking to the caller that you're talking to.
Okay.
So you're listening to the radio, you're listening to the caller, you're listening to what's going on in the office. It's freaking wild. Like I feel like I could run a McDonald's by myself, honestly.
It's weird, like seeing how the sausage is made. In that sense, because you mentioned that you have ADHD, so like you fit perfectly then, because you're all over the place. Yeah. So they just kind of fit in. It was perfectly easy for you to do that. But did you take the call for this homicide case? Like I did. But I was the call taker for it. And the girl that called me, she was whispering. So I was getting like every other word, but I had this feeling in my gut. I was just like, we need to step it up. Like we need to get somebody there. And again, me making a call like that and looking at, so my friend Lindsay, and she and I are still like dear friends to this day. I think that this experience, like we will always be very close because trauma bonded for real.
Seriously. And like some of like my greatest friends that were working in Taylorsville at the time were the officers that were on duty, and that's where they were headed. And I was working the Wasatch Channel, which is like the Holiday Mill Creek area, and all of the canyons. So I'm talking to all the canyon guys and all of the Wasatch and Holiday guys, and this is like the east side, right? So this is the wealthier side of the valley. Taylorsville is on the less wealthy side of the valley, and it can be what people would call ghetto or have a lot of crime. And so as I'm taking this call, I'm doing traffic stops in the middle of it. Like and these are very high risk police calls, right? So not only am I talking to somebody who's whispering and I'm telling her to hide in a closet, I'm also doing a traffic stop that's on the completely opposite side of the valley.
Oh shit.
And so
you can't just do one at a time.
No, you can't. You have to multitask. And so I stand up and I look over the cubicle at my friend Lindsay, and she's working the Taylorsville channel, and I'm sending all this information in. And I looked at her and I was just like, send them code now. And she looked at me like with this look of terror, because she's just like, if I do that and we're fucking wrong, we'll both be fired. And I just said, please, Lindsay, like, please send these guys. Like, we need to get there now. I don't know what's going on, but somebody's being shot right now. So I have the chills talking about this. It was life-changing. Like, it was one of those, like, I will never forget it. I will never be able to not hear her voice, like, in my mind. And I, again, because I was only getting every other word, and your adrenaline's dumping through the whole time, right? I just knew in my mind, I was just like, just get in the closet, stay in the closet, don't move. You know, if you can't talk to me, that's okay. Like, just tell me what you're hearing. Tell me what's going on. And the words I was missing her saying was, she's like, you know, I heard a pop, I heard a pop, I heard a bang. And then she starts freaking out. She's like, I'm next, I know I'm next, and I was just like, no, you're not, everything's gonna be okay, just don't worry, like, everything's gonna be okay, like, just stay with me, you know. And the next thing I hear is, you know, my friends that are cops at the time bust in the front door, and I can hear that on the phone, and then the line goes dead. And then we don't hear from the like, my friend Lindsay, she's not hearing from the officers. The phone line goes dead for me. We're both looking at each other, and tears just start, you know, because it's like, oh shit, like, is everybody okay? And it's quiet. It's freaking quiet for a long time. It feels like an eternity. And all of a sudden we hear, you know, code 4, we have, you know, please send medical. They asked for medical like 5 times. It was awful. And medical wouldn't go in. Like, we had asked medical. It was another agency that was dispatching for them. We asked them to go in so many times. They finally get there. They won't go in. So we have, I think it was 3 officers carry this chick out who's been shot 9 times. And luckily the caller, she hadn't been shot. But now we've got a suspect that's MIA. Like, he's, like, gone out the back door. And so, you know, it's pure chaos, whatever. They end up finding him at a playground, and he's you know, unalived himself there. And so the chief ends up calling me, and he calls me on my cell phone. I'm on my way to the police academy. Okay, at the time, I'm working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, graveyards. I'm at the academy Monday through Saturday. So Monday through Friday, I'm there from like 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. And on the weekends, I'm there Saturday morning, 8 a.m. until 5, 6, depending on whatever they want to do that day. It was usually scenario-based training that day. So the way that I was working at the time, I would literally be up Friday night, because I'd be at the academy, right, from 5 to 10. I would take PTO for the first part of my dispatching shift. I had saved up so much of it so I could do this. And then I would be, you know, at dispatch from 10 p.m. to 6 or 7 a.m., and then I would drive straight to the academy. Then I would drive straight back to dispatch, and I'd work all night. So I'd be up for 2 days straight, 2 days a week. I did that for 9 months.
Oh, my God.
And so I'm driving to the academy. I'm, like, almost to Sandy, and I get a call on my cell phone. And, of course, I answer it because I don't recognize it. It's, like, a blocked number. So I answer it, and it's the chief. And he says, hey, he's like, I want you to know that we really, like, we know that tonight was super intense. So we want to invite you for a debriefing where we're going to show you everything that happened. That way you can decompress, you can, like, work through what you heard. And I was like, wow, you know, thank you. That's amazing. So my friend Lindsay and I, we go to this debriefing. They show us all the drone footage. They show us, like, all of the reconstruction of the crime. They show us where the people were in the house. They basically go through the whole thing with us, right? Just to kind of deconstruct. And also, right, it's a way to see as well, like, what can we improve upon on a call like this? And of course, like, the dispatchers that were there for the other agency, it was so maddening because they were the ones that were dispatching medical and fire. And we had asked for medical and fire 5 different times, and they never sent them.
Why?
And that was exactly why.
Okay.
What the fuck happened, right? Who dropped the fucking ball over there? Are we going to freaking call it out? Or are we just going to see, you know? So, of course, like, it was talked about there. Of course, not as much as it should have been. But, you know, seeing those other dispatchers there, it really was like me and Lindsay against the world is what it felt like, right? Like, trying to take care of all of these things that were happening, and then watching, like, our counterparts that should have been there for us, like, not there for us and stuff. And it was intense. And at the time, our friend Lindy, she had just been hired as a police officer with our department. And so she was there on training with 3 other officers. So they were invited by the chief as well to, like, learn from this experience, even though they were working all over the valley in different parts of the precincts. And so, you know, we see her there and whatever. And as I leave, I get a call from my friend Lindy, and she says to me, hey, it was so good to see you, you know. Did you see the male officer that was there? And I was like, no. And she's like, well, he wants your number. I'm like, no, I'm good. I don't want to give him my number. Don't. Like I didn't want to date within law enforcement at the time.
Oh, that's what we were heading towards.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because this is where this all comes full circle, right? Because this guy, I didn't know he was a bad dude. I did not know. And this is the way he's seeing me for the first time in a professional setting, going to my best friend and saying, please give me her number. And she's saying, oh, I'll ask her, but, you know.
After this traumatizing ass thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
And I just told Lindy, I was like, no. Well, Lindy came to me like another 3 or 4 times. And I finally was just like, Lindy, you are one of my closest, most best friends. If you think he's a good guy, fine. You can give him my number. If you really think so. I was like, but you know my personal rules. Like, I don't want to date in law enforcement. I really don't. Like, I see the terribleness that happens here. I see the guys cheating on their wives. I see, you know, really shitty things happening at the job. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't want to be involved. And also, I want to work for this department. So how's that going to look?
No shit where you eat.
Yeah, like, I don't want to do that. Well, I made that mistake. I'm going to go make...
shat where you ate.
I shat where I ate. I'm going to just go make...
How are you feeling?
So good. How are you?
I'm feeling great. This is fun. You're fun.
Did you expect this kind of a story?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, your eyes are really sparkly like mine. And you have that little sparkly thing we do.
Yeah.
You're like a Leo at heart, I think. Like
there's got to be something in there somewhere, I'm sure.
You were probably going to be born a Leo, but then you're like, nah, I'm ready now.
Yeah, probably.
But you have that twinkly thing that we do when we get excited about talking about stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, that's why I look like a crazy person.
Nah.
But I was like, I got to get my stuff now. and I think that's kind of you reciprocated that energy too. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, you're fun.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think, you know, this kind of stuff, you know, and talking about all of this, like, this is definitely, you know, podcast has always been in the plans. In fact, that's part of the reason why I came to Oregon.
Oh, yeah? How so?
I have a business partner that lives out in Corvallis.
Yeah. Okay, so you did mention that you're entrepreneurship. So
yes.
Now we're kind of jump the timeline.
I know we are jumping.
Jump the timeline a little bit.
Yes, let's jump it.
Tell me about that. Let's tell me about you came to Oregon.
I did.
Why are you here?
Yeah, I know exactly. Why the hell am I here? You know, when I got out of law enforcement, I left in 2015 in support of my ex-husband who had PTSD. I put him through school.
Oof.
He didn't finish. You know, and he worked as well. But I started working for a locum tenens company. I don't know if you know travel nursing or traveling doctors, that kind of a thing. So I started working in credentialing there, doing like background checks basically on doctors for malpractice. And then I moved over to the sales and placement side on the OBGYN team. When I was working there, I've had a passion for creating, you know, my whole life. When I was in law enforcement, I was asked by a very dear friend of mine to join and become part of a nonprofit. And I became the board president of that nonprofit, and I also did the marketing and the sponsorship recruitment for them. And this nonprofit, we bred, raised, trained, and donated police canines to agencies that couldn't afford them.
Whoa,
yeah.
Okay.
So it was awesome. It was amazing. And I had done that for so long, and I started to introduce, you know, social media to a lot of the brand as far as like video, right? Because they had videos and stuff done. Because the biggest thing with that nonprofit...
Well, were they a little corny, though?
Not corny. I would just say that the production wasn't as high, right? Like, there could have been more.
I like that answer. That's very professional. I would say something like that, too.
Well, you know...
I'm ghetto. I'm over here like, it was corny.
No. Honestly, to be honest with you, my friend Ricky, she has the coolest personality. So does her husband, Dustin. You know, Dusty, he was my field training officer. And we became very good friends, and I love their whole family. Like, their kids are like, it's so funny. I feel like I'm like an auntie, but also like a second mom almost, you know? And anyways, Ricky and Draper, they're incredible human beings. And all of the staff, you know, quote unquote staff or board was all current or retired law enforcement or military. All of it was volunteer. None of us were paid. They were dumping so much of their own money into it. And we had placed, I can't even remember at this point, like somewhere in the 20s, dogs with departments all over Utah. We had out-of-state agencies that were asking for dogs as well, which was cool. And one of the reasons why people wanted our dogs was because we would literally show a demo, right? A dog, you know, doing any type of like apprehension work, which is like bite work. And then right after, we'd like let little kids come and pet the dog. because the behavior treatment that we did with these dogs, they could be domesticated at home. Because one thing that any canine officer will tell you is that taking a police canine home, it is so stressful, especially if you have little kids. They're very unpredictable in that way, right? Because they're a working breed, they're a working dog. And so a lot of times, like, it's very difficult, like their aggression, you know, or their prey drive is what it's called, is very high, especially if they're not trained properly, right? So to have them around little kids, that's why it says, like, police canines stay back when you see their cop cars, because, again, the liability is huge. So that was, like, kind of the magic, right, is we would breed these dogs, train them, and put them to work if they wanted to, right? It was never a forced thing. Dogs will choose if they want to work or not. It's very obvious from the time they're puppies. And some of them, they want to work. It's their job. They want that. And so the way that you train and raise them, you can literally raise them to do a job, but also to be not this like animal, right? This wild beast. And so really kind of getting that on video was important because people needed to be educated on that, right? Because I think that there's some animal rights groups out there that don't agree with the fact that canine is used as a non-lethal use of force. And you know, you have to look at the whole spectrum, right? Like, you've got people who are super pro lethal force and people who are not at all, right? Like, and so to have a tool in the tool belt that can be hugely helpful to where nobody gets killed is huge, right? Like, and also you want to be treating this living being with respect and love and everything like that too. So again, it's very important to get those types of things on video to show people and educate people that it's just like when you have a farm dog that wants to work, they want to work, they want to herd, that it's in their little DNA makeup that's what they want to do.
That's wild how that happens.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah.
So for me, you know, I really wanted to make sure that was getting on video. And so I ended up reaching out to a big group in Utah called Men Try Videos. Not to be mixed up with the Try Guys, but Men Try Videos was a group in Utah, and they were I think at the time at like 300,000 on YouTube or something like that. They were big time. People knew who they were, and so I called them, or I messaged them, and I was like, "What do you guys think about trying police canine work?" And they're like, "Fuck yeah!" Like, I got the email back from one of the wives, and she's like, "Absolutely! Like, we're so down, whatever." So we ended up doing this huge YouTube collaboration with them. And it was amazing. It was so freaking good, right? Yeah. We filmed one for our channel. They filmed one for their channel.
Of like how did the process is?
Yeah. We actually had them get in bite suits and get bit.
That's so cool.
We showed them from the puppy stage all the way up to fully trained. We had my brother come out and do drone footage for it as well. So it's honestly, there's some pretty dope stuff that's out there.
Have you ever been in the bite suit before?
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, what's that like?
Honestly, it's fun.
That's intimidating.
It's so fun. I think again, you know, you probably have picked up on the fact that from the time of me being 16 to now, right? Like, I'm an adrenaline junkie. Like, I love that shit. Like, put me where it's going to be the scariest and like, ooh, like it gets me excited. Like, I really love it. Probably in an unhealthy way, right? But I love it, right? And adrenaline is addicting. It's a hormone that's super addicting. It's the reason why when officers retire, they die within 5 years of a heart attack, because your body's so dysregulated.
Oh my God. Is that like a real statistic?
Oh, it is a real statistic, yes.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Especially if you work a full career. Like, you literally, your body is just not built to be under that much stress constantly, right? So it starts to give up. And that sounds terrible, but it is just the truth.
Someone who is an adrenaline junkie, does the same thing happen? If you're always trying to reach that high, that level, and then you just stop, will the same thing happen to you if you just like mellowed and domesticated yourself?
I'm not sure. To be fair with you, I mean, I haven't looked into those. Do I?
Yeah.
No. No. One thing I will say, when I left law enforcement, I hadn't left just yet, and there was somebody that got wind of it and told a sergeant that I had known since I was like a kid, right? And I saw him in a parking lot somewhere, and he pulled up next to me, and he goes, "Hey, I heard you're leaving." I said, "Yeah, I am."
How old are you at this time?
At this time, I'm 20. I'm either 24 or 25.
And you're married now, too?
Not yet.
Okay.
This was right before I was getting married. We both decided to leave right before we got married. So I'm engaged at the time, and this sergeant, he just looks at me, and he goes, "You know what? is this a choice you really want to make, right? Because everybody knew, like, my history, especially, you know, some of these guys I've been working with since I was like a child. And he was like, you know, you sure about this? And I'm like, I think so. I was pretty, at least I thought at the time, I was pretty okay with what my decision was. And he's like, well, just be careful because it's always in the blood. And I didn't know what he meant by that until I was out and I had lots of fun mental health stuff happen to me afterwards. But it definitely is one of those things where, I mean, yeah, like I loved my career. And I get asked all the time, like, why don't you just go back? And I think
do people really talk about the mental health part of like law enforcement at all? I feel like that's such a
taboo.
They don't even talk about it. Like all I hear is like, and which is funny because you're here in Oregon. I'm sure you've seen a lot of ACAB stuff. You know. Oh yeah. Like.
They're my favorite people to talk to because when they find out that that's my background, they're like, I would have never guessed. And I'm like, yeah, because we're just normal people like you.
The dreads. I know you don't have the dreads, but like because of the dreads, you know what I'm saying? Like that chill mentality. You got rid of the dreads, but did you really?
Probably not. I've always been a hippie at heart, for real. Yeah, I mean, you know, again, like when I got into law enforcement, I used to carry, I don't even know what the scripture is or which book it's in or anything, but I used to carry, it was in my right breast pocket. It just was a piece of paper that said, you know, all souls have worth inside of God. So everything that I approached was like, I'm not the judge, jury, executioner. I'm literally here to help. That's it. Facilitate, help. And unfortunately, if you've made choices and you tie my hands, that's not up to me anymore. I'm just doing what I have to, right? Like, I would always give people the benefit of the doubt, number one. And number two, I'd give them every opportunity to not go to jail. I would tell them, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Tell me the truth, right? I always gave them that out, always. Unless it was domestic. Domestic, you have to arrest. You shall arrest is what's in the law. So you don't get a choice. One of them has to go to jail. They have to be separated. But everything else, there is discretion that's involved.
That's a fine line. Like, I think if you're domestic, that should be an automatic.
100%. It's one of the most dangerous calls. Like, more officers are either killed on traffic stops or domestic violence calls.
And it's like that thing we talked about way earlier. Bruised egos, man. Men are crazy. It's all men, huh?
I mean, you also have women, and here's the thing that's dangerous about domestics is women will want to, like, even though they're being abused, then they start to want to defend their abuser, and then they become violent. So you'll see both sides of it, and I can understand it. To be honest with you, I see both sides, you know, and the cycle of abuse it's a difficult one to break, right? There's something called the OODA loop. That's what they call it. I can't even remember what it friggin' stands. The OODA loop.
OODA loop?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what they call it. It's a psychology term. Don't know what it stands for, but or don't remember really is what it is. But you learned about it in the academy, and it's called breaking the OODA loop. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to break the psychological cycle that a suspect or a criminal is in while they're performing a crime. And you want to break that psychological loop that they're in, because that's the only way to safely end situations. Because what you're doing is you're finding their weak spot, basically, to be like, okay, if they're not watching this part of what they're doing in their, you know, systematic crime, then they're not going to run into, you know, like it's not going to escalate to violence, basically. So you want to find them at the perfect part of the OODA loop, break that OODA loop, and go from there. Well, when you're trying to do that in a domestic, and you can do that with, you know, the perpetrator usually, or try to figure out who it is, that's, you know, that's the violent party, because unfortunately, right, then you have people that are defending themselves against the spouse that's, you know, the violent one. That's why you see the Gabby Petito case is such a big deal, and it's been all over the place. You know, as an officer in Utah, it was a hard one to watch. I'll be honest with you. Like, you know, I understand from the officer's perspective. Where they don't want to charge these kids, right? Because it's like, maybe it's just like a small fight, whatever. But they were also giving benefit of the doubt. But they also weren't paying attention to certain things, right? But I think I probably pick up on other things too, because I've had domestic violence personally in my life. So for me, when I watch those videos, I can see where the officers are coming from, but I can also see too that they were missing very key telltale signs, and they were pinning it on one person when they really should have opened up that conversation more. But you have to remember, right? Officers go into law enforcement. We're expected to be the therapist, the you know, de-escalator, the enforcer, the victim's advocate. Like, you have so many hats that you put on. You have to know certain medical things. You have to be able to detain people. I mean, you really walk a fine line, and you don't have a degree in any of it. But yet you're held to a higher standard than every person on this planet, because you carry a gun. And I understand it's a huge responsibility. Do not get me wrong. I get it. But imagine, like, you don't know what people are capable of, and you don't know what their next moves are.
And I guess that's why I always thought it was fascinating, especially with the whole defund the police, do this, and it's like, again, the all ACAB people. It's just, I don't subscribe to that. It's like, man, you're right. All these different hats that they have to wear, and of course, every career has a few bad eggs.
Oh, absolutely.
But that it's not a representation of everyone.
No.
And I remember me and my homie D were talking to a couple guys at a bar. And we were just hanging out, and he really cool dude, super chill, talking about wrestling, talking about all this stuff. And then we got into the cops, and he got a little drunk, and he was just like, "Hey, cab, this and that, fuck the police." And I was just like, man, it just got really weird, intense. And he was just like, "All cops are trash." And I'm just like, man, we're gonna walk away from this situation. We're not gonna do this. But to see that, and then to see your perspective, you're right. It's true. Like, so many hats, and they're held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't get it.
Well, and I think that's the problem, right? And like, obviously too, like, it's always good to have accountability on all sides. Like, I'm totally for body cams. I was an officer before body cams. So to be honest with you, I mean, I definitely don't know how that would have changed me or my perspective or whatever. I don't think it would have, because again, I was operating out of a totally different mindset. I was operating off of, you know, people go through hard things, that people do stupid shit. Like, not everyone is bad, even though it looks bad, right? Like, really, and I was a bailiff throughout my career as well. So I worked in the courts at one point. I worked with the mental health population. I went to something called CIT training, and I was a CIT officer. So I was called on like all of the mental health patients. So like any suicidal patients. Sorry, now that I work in healthcare, it's a little hard. My lines get blurred, but you know, I was called on all the suicidals. I worked in mental health court. So I worked directly with the inmates that were involved in the state's programs to try and get out of, you know, their charges and to get back into being rehabilitated into society. And so I saw a very, very, very unique side of rehabilitation. And I even worked up at the state hospital a little bit. That was hard. I actually used to leave there feeling like maybe I'm not stable. I don't know how people work in that on a consistent basis, because it is so intense.
Oh, I'm sure the turnaround rate is crazy if people quit.
I mean, because honestly, you start to question your own amount of sanity. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I just remember every time I'd leave the state hospital, I'm like, oh my God, like, I don't know if I want to come back here, because it's just so much more intense than what you can imagine. You know, and people are really suffering. I think that's another thing. Like, people are really, really suffering. And, you know, that was back then. Like, even now, like, I look at life now and it's just like, damn, like, things are so different now,
and,
you know?
And we're just touching the surface, which is kind of wild to me that we've been talking for a little over 2 hours now. And I feel like we're still at 18, you know what I'm saying? But you're such a giving person. You have a good heart. And I always feel like when bad stuff happens to you, I always relate it to like black sludge covering it up. Something happens, black sludge. Why isn't your heart like sludge, and why are you still giving? I don't know. After a while, don't you feel callous and a little jaded to everything? Like, why are you still going? What keeps you going?
You know, I think, you know, you're faced with a lot of choices in life, right? You get to choose how you respond. Like, life is what, 10% what happens to you, 90% is how you respond, or whatever that like famous quote is somewhere. But I truly subscribe to that, because, you know, if I even told you what's happened in my life in the last 2 years, I think you'd be like, what the fuck? I have if somebody, you know, what I can say is this, is if somebody heard my circumstances from the outside that doesn't know me, doesn't know my background, even just what's happened in the last 2 years, they would be like, yeah, you have every right to be a fucking asshole. Like, I guess I've just always looked at life, you know, in the same way. Like, when I was asked, there was a department that wanted to hire me. It was a different department, and the chief pulled me in for an interview, and we were sitting there. And one of the questions they ask you, right, because you go through psychological evals, you have tons of scenario-based questions. Like, they want to make sure, like, A, you're stable, B, you have a good sound mind and good head on your shoulders. You're going to make decisions that are fair and right and just. You know, one of the questions that they ask you is, you know, are you really actually okay if you would have to, like, kill somebody? Like, are you okay with that? And of course, you know, how do you answer that question? And all I can say is my perspective has always been, somebody else made that decision for me. Because I would
If you
never.
have to kill somebody.
100%. Somebody else made decisions in their life that put me in the situation that I'm in with them. And if I have to do that, that was predetermined before I ever came in to be involved. Because the only job I have is to facilitate safety. That's it. That's my only job, is to
That's
facilitate.
still heavy though.
It's heavy. It's heavy. And so I just knew that if it really came down to it, I knew that the only way that I could consciously and subconsciously deal with having to live with something like that, right? Because like if you, no one wants to kill another person. I mean, some people do, but not me. Like definitely not me. Like I never even wanted things to get violent. Like confrontation is not something I like. I don't like confrontation, even just as a personal human being, like with person to person, even a stranger. Like I don't like confrontation. I don't thrive on that. That's not something I want in my life. So to have, been in a situation or a profession where that was a very consistent thing I was dealing with, my big thing was, again, like somebody's made those decisions already to land me in that situation with them. If they have made the decision that they don't want to comply at that point, it's no longer my decision. It's their decision, right? Like, because again, I just have my job and that's it. And not because I want to like dehumanize it at all, but there are just some situations that you just don't get to, you have to respond. You don't get to make the decision. You're responding to someone else's decision. And I feel like especially in situations where people are shot and killed by police, there's so many things that could have gone differently before getting in that situation. I can tell you that, and I'm sure there's going to be people listening that are like, what the fuck? Like, but no, truly, like if you really analyze cases, if you really sit down and you look at all the facts and what happened from before, during, and after, even the person's background, how does it get to the point? How does it get there, right? I know that obviously there's some situations where you've got people who mistake certain things, or there's a mental health issue going on, right? And so they have a fake weapon, or they're pretending like they have a weapon and they end up getting shot and killed. How devastating. Like I can't even imagine living with that, right? Like that would be horrible. I don't know one person that I worked with, and I worked with many different people in many different departments in many federal and state agencies. I don't know one person that was like, you know what, I can't wait to get in a fight today. I don't know anybody that feels that way. I really don't. And I would be honest about that, because I can tell you this, like straight faced, the best people I've ever met are in law enforcement, and the worst people I've ever met are in law enforcement.
Fuck, that's
and
bold.
I truly believe that.
That is very bold.
They say the front of the badge is shiny, the back of it's dirty. And it's true. It's very true. The types of people that you see getting into it, you've got the people who are pure-hearted, truly pure-hearted. They just want to do good. Obviously, too, it's fun. Like, let's just be real. Like, I'm not going to sit here and, like, sugarcoat it. Like, it's fun. It's super fun. You get to interact with, like, totally different people all the time, see things you've never seen before, be involved in situations like the Olympics, like coming to Utah and stuff like that. Like there's officers that got to go to all of the Olympics because they got to work that, right? And meet all these crazy, people and whatever. And of course the adrenaline rush and, catching the bad guy and actually taking kids out of bad situations. Like, do not get me wrong. There are some super freaking fun things that are part of this job. And you get that satisfaction of actually seeing something through, right? And actually helping solve a problem, helping someone get out of a bad situation and change their life. Like you literally watch like drug dealers, like all of a sudden, like they become like decent, like hardworking people, even though they could choose to drug deal. They decide to get out of it and they decide to change their life. Like it's amazing. Like you see people literally change from the inside out. So it's not, you have a lot of really good people that get into it because there's a lot of benefit to that. Plus you're outside, you're always in different situations. Like if you've got ADHD, man, this is the job for you. Like, you are, there's nothing the same. You'll never be bored. There's always some sort of a dopamine hit somewhere. But there's also guys that I worked with that, being a woman in law enforcement, especially during that time, what a weird time. I had coworkers that were just like, I'm not listening to you. You're a fucking woman.
Jesus, just right to your face, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they'd be like, fuck you. And I'm like, oh, all right, well, hopefully the LT, who's also a woman, doesn't hear what you just said. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to freaking go tattletale on you, but, like, you want to treat situations like that, like, I don't give a fuck.
You're not going to change them anyway.
No, exactly. Like, I'm not, in my mind, it's like you're an old school, old-minded person that, like, if you don't, the problem is, though, is, like, I'm the only female officer you trust, so riddle me that. Like, you want to be a dick to me, that's fine, like, but I'm not it doesn't change who I am, and it doesn't change how I see myself, and it's not going to change how I treat you. But it definitely, I mean, there were some old school mindsets that were still happening at the time. And even our captain was, the captain, like the full leader of our department was a female. Our lieutenant was a female. And then it wasn't until, there was a second lieutenant that was a male, and then the rest of our sergeants were all male. But the 2 leaders in our department, like the top dogs, were female. So I think it's interesting.
And they still have that type of mentality towards women?
Oh, yeah. When I was in.
Just say you hate women, bro.
I know, exactly. Like, just say that you got hurt. Like, oh, what happened? Like,
bruised ego.
Yeah, seriously.
I think the bruised ego can go a long way if they
true.
use that power for good instead of using it for bad.
Exactly. And I think that's where that kind of comes in, right? Like, I knew of guys that they would utilize, and it's funny, there's a saying, the badge gets the vag, and then the vag gets the badge. Meaning, your sexual deviancy, you will get women because you're in uniform. But those women, if you fuck up, they will ruin your life. They will take your career. You'll end up in jail, right? So, like, if you abuse the fact that you have a different kind of power, that will come back at you at some point, whether it's right now or years from now. But I mean, it's a saying, right? And then there's also a saying called badge bunnies, right? There's women that all they want to do is date somebody in uniform, or even men. It's the same thing. And if you're a guy that doesn't get a lot of attention, and all of a sudden because of your job you're getting attention, I mean, some guys just make really dumb fucking decisions. Really dumb fucking decisions.
And I guess where you fall on that is you never wanted to date law enforcement.
Hell no.
Because
Hell
of that?
no. Yeah, because I watched guys who were cheating on their wives. I watched weird, like, I just felt like there was even like inner office like stuff that I came to know later, right? Again, I'm like a baby and super sheltered, coming from such a sheltered life, that I'm watching this stuff and I'm like, is that really true? Is that really happening? Like, holy crap,
Do you
like.
remember that? Well, I don't remember her name, but the lady who was like having like a train ran on her, and she had what? Do you remember that? It was in the news this last year. She was like having trains ran on her, and then she was just in the department, and then this became a huge scandal. I don't remember her name. I'll have to look it up.
Honestly, I don't remember, and it's here. One second for me.
Okay, you're throwing a lot at me.
I know. That's the
But
problem.
I'm liking this. I guess I want to know. How do you feel about, like, now that you did this, now like with law enforcement, and then you came to Oregon, you're saying you were a bit of an entrepreneur yourself. You were a bit of a
Yep. Because when I got into,
did that involve podcasting in some way, or you were mentioning something like leaning towards it?
Yeah, so leaning towards it. So when I left law enforcement, started working for that healthcare company. And I had already done some YouTube stuff and dabbled in that, right? Like, I love YouTube. I grew up on YouTube. I absolutely love it. It's like, I love the culture of it. I love the creators. Oh my gosh. Well, so
Teach me the algorithm.
Well, it's so funny. So I became a YouTube business coach, actually, and I was certified through Google.
Okay.
So
Hell yeah.
So I wanted to, make YouTube videos, whatever. I'm so fascinated with that type of creation. Obviously, making some of the videos and social media marketing for the nonprofit. I just knew I wanted to create something where people felt like they could do anything, right? Like, so like, let me try the hard thing. If I fail, I fail. If I succeed, great, whatever. But I wanted to do something that kind of just was like more relatable that way, So I become part of a group called No Small Creator. I don't know if that rings a bell at all.
No, what's that about?
So I'm blanking his name, and I'm going to feel really bad. But this guy created this whole thing where he was a micro-influencer at the time, ADHD to the max. He had, I want to say, been fired from his job, and he went into full-time content creation. And he created this whole community called No Small Creator, saying that there's no creator that's too small. So I became part of this group. It was like a Facebook group at the time. And he ended up partnering with a guy who lives in Utah, who is the owner of something called Vid Summit. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but it's
called?
Vid Summit.
No.
So it's a big YouTube conference that they hold out in California. I think they've moved it now to Texas.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Yes. Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So Daryl Eves lived 15 minutes away from me.
Okay.
And he, at the time, had all of his own branding and marketing, and he's a big YouTube, I've made all these YouTubers famous kind of a guy.
Oh, okay.
And so he created this conference in LA. And he found Cody. That's his name, Cody. I'm going to remember his last name here in a second. But anyways, he found Cody and decided to partner with him and said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we create a video competition and let people submit, but they have to collaborate with another creator. There has to be a collaboration. And then they can submit their videos, and then we'll choose the top person, and then we'll send them to Vid Summit for free. So I see this opportunity, and I post on it was crazy. I was like going to the gym. I was so depressed. And
how old are you at this point?
Oh man, that's a good question. 27?
Okay.
Maybe. And I'm so depressed. I'm going to the gym. And at this point, like I had just been diagnosed when I was 25 with sudden onset major depressive disorder, PTSD, anxiety, ADHD. I wasn't diagnosed until 2 years ago, but, so I was dealing with a lot of mental health. Like the major depressive disorder was huge for me, like huge. Like it changed me as a person completely. Like I'm not the same person I used to be at all.
For worse or for better?
I think now for better, but I think there for a lot of years I was so suicidal, so lost, so unable to connect with myself. So it was very hard to connect with others. It was very, very hard for me.
But the core was there. Like I feel like you never lost that. Like you're still, I'm sure, hopefully you were still really good at talking to people.
Yeah,
right?
No, for sure. I mean, because
Caring
what ends
for
up
people?
happening is when you're that depressed, right, and you're that like empty, you start to think about how people interact and you mimic it until you can feel it yourself. And that sounds terrible, but like that's the only way you can function through it. Because one thing is like you question mental health when you are diagnosed with it, especially if you go from being the happiest to all of a sudden being suicidal. Like you start to question like what happened to me, why me? At least I did. I remember I would drive to work and I'd be screaming at God in the car, like, why the fuck me? Like, I'm so grateful for my life. Like, I've never asked you for anything. Like, why is this happening to me? Like, how could you do this to me? Like, I had just gotten married. Like, it was horrible. It was, honestly, if like, the only way I know how to describe it is like, connection is the only thing I've ever valued in my life. Right? Like I worked as a cop. I made $16.51 an hour is what I was making when I left law enforcement. That's less than $30,000 a year. Okay. I got into that because I wanted to help. I love my friends. I love people. Like I just have a bleeding heart for people, for animals. Like I'm a very sensitive person, like very much so. And so my connection to people is like the most important thing to me. And so to lose that, it was like the worst thing that could have ever happened to me. Like the one thing I care about and value, and it is priceless to me, was gone. And I couldn't function. I was just like, oh my God, like, holy shit, like what's happened to me,
Devil's advocate, but this was by choice. You left by choice, right?
I did leave by choice. I left law enforcement by choice.
I guess like the easiest, and this is just as like I said, devil's advocate. Why didn't you just go back to your happy place then? If you,
I know it's so funny, right? Like we think about those things, and I did. I've considered it even up to this very day. I've considered going back, but I will tell you. I mean, especially once I was diagnosed, I wasn't fit for duty at that point. I mean, I was so suicidal. There was just no, there's no going, the way around it. Like I was not in a good place, and I think too, I noticed after I was diagnosed, I had had depression my whole life. It was almost like it was asleep inside of me. And Pandora's box suddenly opened, right? So I've got...
You went through all this shit for
I know.
it to finally open. You're a tough cookie.
Oh, thank you.
You're tough to break.
I've never thought of it that way, honestly.
But like, you managed to keep your depression that locked up, and you went through all these experiences one after another. On paper, textbook, you just finding out the kid thing, not being able to have kids at 17, that should have been it on paper.
Oh, totally.
But you kept going and kept going. And I guess that goes back to that question of where, why isn't your heart all black and gooey, especially during your depression? I feel like that would have been the killer too.
Yeah, no, I just had this. I think there's one thing that's never died in me, and maybe it has, maybe it's gone lower at some points, but I just have like an insane drive. Insane. Like I want to make a difference in the world. Like I really do. Like whether that's for someone I don't know or someone I do, it doesn't matter. Like even if it's just like, you know, I think it's like that cheesy shit, like, oh, like a smile can change someone's day, but it's the truth.
It really does.
It really is the truth. Like you don't realize like your energy plays onto other people, and what you put out, you really do get back.
Hugging someone does that too.
100%. The oxytocin and everything else that's dumped during a physical contact with another person, it's so important.
I just learned how to hug people at like 25.
Good for you.
Not even kidding. I hated physical touch. Don't know how to do it. And like I didn't say I hate it, but I just didn't know how. I was so awkward. It's like dancing. What do you do with your arms? I didn't know what to do. And when I realized the importance of it, I actually like would like YouTube like how to hug people without being weird.
Yeah. Bless your heart, man.
Like
oh,
that was
man.
like, how do I? Because you see, you know, like you'd see, like say you were in a group of friends, and then you time to say bye, they would go like they would give each other hugs. I would just kind of like back away.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do because I don't know what to do. It's not that I don't want it. I just don't know what to do. And if I get it, I'm gonna start crying because I'm like, I didn't get this.
Aww.
I never knew my father. You know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But then when I finally was like looked into it, I was like, dude, physical touch is important. So like
Extremely.
super important. I guess and so for you to like already have that in your DNA and have that caring for people, I'm still like dumbfounded. Like who the fuck are you?
Honestly, I just have such a bleeding heart. Like I would say that, you know, my dad, like him being as kind and as giving and overly giving, like, you know, little criticism there, Dad, love you, but him being as giving as he was and seeing that growing up, you know, it's like I call myself an ex-boundaryless wonder.
Oh yeah?
Oh yeah.
Explain.
Because I feel like I never was taught boundaries, right? Like as far as like, I feel like some people, like they're totally fine to be like, oh, it's getting late, I gotta go home. That is still hard for me to this day to be like, hey, it's getting late, I need to sleep, like I gotta go. You know, like that's very hard for me. Like I actually very much struggle with those types of boundaries because I don't want to hurt the other person. Like I'm very sensitive to like not wanting to offend people, not wanting, you know, and again, but that's abandoning yourself, right? Like your self-care, your self-worth, like, you know, if somebody else, I'm totally fine if somebody else does it, but like me, no, like how could I, you know? And I think that was like part of the big transformation going through depression and going through an identity crisis. I went through a true identity crisis. I did not know who I was without law enforcement. I started so young. That became my identity. I didn't realize that my friends were introducing me as, oh, this is my friend, she's a cop. My name was no longer used.
Oh yeah.
You know, and also you're known by your last name when you're an officer. You're not known by your first name. You don't.
That's right.
You don't go about life like a civilian does. Like so, transitioning from cop life to back to civilian life, it was like fish out of water. That's the only thing I know how to describe it as. I remember I had only been at this company, and I knew like the first. And this is the sad part, right? Like I should have known the first week working at that company after I left law enforcement. I should have gone back immediately to law enforcement because I would come home and I would just be crying, and my ex-husband, we were engaged still at the time. We were getting married in like a month from that time. And he would just look at me, he's like, what is wrong? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I literally don't know, but like, I'm struggling, like to the point where like, I don't know why I'm crying, but it is like so visceral, right? Like I'm like hysterics and I don't know why. And it's not that like at the time, like the company should have been like the most exciting thing ever. Like it's this big sales company with a bunch of dude bros that are like, you're going to make all this money. Like, you know what I mean? Like I should have been like over the moon, right? Like, and like, my ex at the time, he had bought me like all these like cute clothes from H&M, like office clothes, right? Like I had been only wearing a police uniform and gym clothes for the past 10 years, you know what I mean? So I really didn't know, you know, life in civilian world. And so I get through training and I am up on a desk, and within my first week, all of a sudden behind me, I just hear one of the women I work with screaming. And it literally like, I mean, PTSD for sure. Like it jolted me and I was like, what the fuck? She's screaming at the IT department because they put her desk 2 notches too high and she's got carpal tunnel. And it took me everything. I literally had to physically remove myself from the building because I literally almost freaked the fuck out. To be like, there are babies fucking dying and you're freaking out about what? Your fucking desk? Like, literally, I want to slap you. Like, This type of reaction is insane. And right, what I had to learn coming back into civilian world is that's a really big deal for her. That's a big deal for her. Big enough of a deal for her to emotionally respond that way because she's in so much pain. She's got such a history. Maybe she asked the IT department 17 different times and they've fucked it up yet again. But in my mind, right, what you freak out about is life or death. You don't freak out about the small shit that can be fixed within 5 seconds, right? And again, that was my mentality at the time. That was very hard for me to transition from that. And, you know,
you
it's...
didn't see it as valid enough?
No.
Oh.
No, because in my mind, it's just like, what warrants that kind of a response? Not
Well,
that.
That is a little much, too.
It is a little much. You know what I mean?
Really
And I
is.
know it's an extreme example, but it was one of the first examples that I was like, oh, I can't deal with this. Like, if this is what civilians are like, you know what I mean? Like, that sounds terrible because it shouldn't be like us versus them. But it's like, if this is what normal people freak out about after I've been exposed to so much tragedy and terrible shit, like, how am I going to freaking fit in with these people? I can't relate to that shit. Like, that is so far beyond what I would be having a fucking meltdown over. Like, I still barely, and I'm just being honest, like, right? Like, you learn how to compartmentalize when you're an officer. Not that you dehumanize people, but you have to dehumanize certain situations or else you'll be a fucking disaster mentally. Like, when you see dead bodies or when you see, you know, super abusive situations. Like, I remember the first time I took a kid away from their parents, still. And, like, how confusing it is for the kids. And, like, how you know as, like, an adult, right? This is the best thing for you. We are protecting you. This is, you know, but, like, kids don't understand that, you know? And to see this, like, breakage of, like, a family, but it's, like, for everyone's benefit.
Do you take some of that blame?
You really
handle
have to... You really have to
'Cause
separate
you're physically
yourself.
doing it?
Yeah.
But aren't you still holding on to that?
In some ways, yes. In other ways, you know, and maybe it's because my ex-husband came from so much abuse in his life, and he was an officer as well. And this was not the officer I dated that was super abusive, but he came from so much abuse in his life. And the thing that really, you know, pushed him into law enforcement was an officer that actually came during a very abusive time in his life. And that's what, you know, he saw that and was just like, well, I want to be greater, right? Like, I want to help kids like me. And having his perspective was very, very helpful for me. Knowing that the abuse that he endured, a lot of that was due to lack of police intervention, to be honest. And he would be even a different person today if there would have been more intervention by law enforcement, to be honest with you.
Which makes him want to help other people, right?
Mm-hmm. It totally
that's
did.
kind of why you get in the game, right?
Yeah.
Well, they say hurt people.
Yeah.
But unless you're hurt people, help people.
Exactly. Because I believe, truly, to my core, I believe that our pain is made to be medicine for others. Truly.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think maybe, too, like, that same question you've been asking me, like, what keeps you, like, in this place of, like, not being, like, the dark night of the soul constantly? It really is that, like, I know after going through my own painful situations and finally being able to relate to whether it's one person or 10 people, I recognize that no one's ever going through something by themselves, even though you feel so alone, right? And so isolated and so, well, your circumstances aren't the exact same as mine. Well, the heart of the matter is that, like, truly, like, if you're going through a divorce, if you're going through a loss of a parent, loss of a pet, loss of a friend, even if it's just like you become ex-friends, right? Like, you're not friends anymore. These types of loss that we experience in the human experience, like, they change people, even chemically and molecularly. Like, it is crazy to see what happens when you're pulled out of an abusive situation, even, right? Like, or if you walk away from an abusive situation and you can actually rebuild yourself. I mean, truly, like, that pain that you went through, you can either use that to be a weapon or you can use that to be medicine to heal other people. And I truly think that, like, that is a choice. That's a choice everyone has. And, like, you can either use that as your excuse and your crutch and I'm an asshole because look at all the shit that happened to me. Or you can use it as, if you want to know and if you want help and if you ask for that, I'm willing to give it. Because I know that during my time, I would have given anything for the perspective that I have now.
I like that too, because I do feel like there was a point in my time in my life where I would justify my shitty behavior but it's because you treat me like shit, I in turn treat you like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that really never, you're just chasing your tail.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I do subscribe to what you're saying there, and helping other people any way I can.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like there's no such thing as a small platform. You have a platform.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's true. You have influence, no matter if you're, if you think so or not, whether or not you even have a platform on social media. Like you yourself, the interactions that you have with other humans on a daily basis, and even with yourself, right? How you treat yourself is how you treat other people. So if you're a fucking asshole outside of you, imagine how miserable that person is on the inside. If you can't communicate, imagine how much they can't communicate with their own damn selves. Like, you really start to look at people differently too when you recognize like their pain and suffering. If that's on the outside, imagine what a living hell they're living through, right? And it doesn't justify it, but at least I can have some sort of perspective or compassion towards that, to where I don't react emotionally or, with that same kind of like animalistic like prey drive towards another person. I think that's where you see people that are super dysregulated, like they don't know how to regulate their emotions. Well, because they've never even gone internal to do that. So they'll justify what they do because, this all happened to me. And I understand, I truly, like I get it, right? But that's where you see the extreme cases when you're in law enforcement, where you see people murdering each other, right?
Right.
Even if it's a crime of passion, even if this person wasn't inherently like, somebody who was fiending to kill someone, like, right? Like you'll see things happen because that person was not willing to address their own problems on the inside. And so I think we have like an extreme mental health epidemic. I think we have extreme issues with the lack of actual help that's out there.
No resources out there.
None. I mean, I'll tell you, when I was...
but there really is very seldom.
No, we had 9 beds. We had 9 VA beds when I was in law enforcement. 9. Like imagine, and then like because all of the other, they call them beds, right? Because they'll literally go and be checked in and be given help for free. Like all of that was gone. By the time I left dispatch and got onto the road, I mean, we literally had no resources, nothing. So even trying to call victims advocates, like those are all like, some of those are volunteer positions, right? And you start to see things and like how dysfunctional like a judicial or law enforcement branch is, and how there is no money. So when people are saying defund, it's like, honey, there is no money there. So there's no, I mean, if you take any amount of money that's already not there, like you are talking about taking away any amount of training that's still available, any amount of, I remember I sat on lists for years to go to the mental health training that I went to and I got certified in. For years. Even our active shooter trainings and stuff like that. Imagine that, right? We've had 385 mass shootings here in the United States just this year.
Mm-hmm. That's scary as hell.
It is scary as hell. But imagine, that's what we're talking about when we talk about defund the police. Well, really what you're saying is take away all their training. I mean, you're not really hurting, we already don't get paid. Like, I'll be honest. I mean, maybe here in Oregon, people get paid, I will say, way more. But again, I'm telling you, when I left law enforcement making less than $30,000 a year, it really puts things into perspective. I mean, they were trying to take away our retirement benefits. When I left, they had just taken away our prescription health benefits. So none of us had prescriptions covered. None of us. We had guys that were on food stamps. We had guys that were on CHIP. Like, I mean, some of these guys like could not even provide for their families. So, yet they're held to the standard of like, you better do X, Y, Z, right? And again, it's because you have to have heart to be in it. Like you really do. You either have to have heart or ego, and you got to have a little bit of ego, right? Like I'm definitely not as tiny as I once was. I was in really good shape, and I was tiny back when I was a cop. And like I had to walk into a room with confidence, right? Like when I'm dealing with big dudes, right? Like they can't think I'm scared of them.
You have to have a certain demeanor.
You do.
I guess. So, femininity, what does that mean to you?
Oh, God. I've really had to heal that part of my soul because I grew up with all brothers, right? And I wanted to be like them so bad. I wanted to be like them so bad. Like my poor mom, bless her heart. Like, thank goodness, like, my sister-in-law is, like, so girly and, like, cute and, like, whatever, right? Like, my poor parents, like, here I am. I danced my whole life, then I want to be a cop. Like, oh, geez.
I mean, female cops are not always looked as the most feminine things ever. You have to be so tough, right?
You do.
And so I guess that, and then so adding that, and then let's throw on, your childhood, the fact that you had, at 17, the kid thing, I'm sure you had a lot of doubts there, what it's like to be a woman, right?
Oh yeah, and I put like crazy rules on myself. I didn't even know like how subconsciously these rules were, right?
What do you mean?
I put a rule on myself that I could never get stretch marks because I couldn't have kids. So there's no excuse for me to have stretch marks. Okay, that's insane. Let's just be real. Okay, like I'm 33 years old. That's an insane rule to put on yourself at the age of 6.
I just found a new one while we were talking.
Right, exactly. Same here. Yeah. So it's like, that was super unrealistic. The other thing is I thought, how crazy is it? This is still to this day, like when I think back to this mindset, I'm like, holy shit, I was like psychotic. But I thought to myself, well, I'm an even better asset to a police department because I'll never have to take maternity leave. That's what I was trying to find the best parts of this, right? As like this most devastating thing. And I thought, oh, well, in this career, like I'm going to be, way more valuable because I'm not going to come with all these issues, right? I don't have a period, at least that I know of, right? As far as like, I'm not like needing to go change my tampon. I'm not like, yes, I still regulate through hormones. So there's times that like I'm sick and I'll never know why, but it's like, oh, I'm probably on like some sort of like a hormonal cycle that I'm not aware of because I don't have evidence of it, right?
Yeah, but
it's still there.
Wild.
And so it's brutal, to be honest with you. It's so brutal because where most women know like their cycles and their bodies, like that's something that I am just barely in my 30s starting to try and track and see if I can like figure it out, and so I had these unrealistic, weird fucking rules, like, and honestly, it was like self-hatred type shit, right? Like not being able to have a stretch mark, like what the fuck, right? Like honestly, you gain muscle, you get stretch marks, like, and here I am like lifting weights and doing all of that stuff, right? Like I would say that my confidence, because I had so much confidence not in a way of, I'm so powerful. It was, I knew what I was good at. I knew I was good at my job. I knew I cared about people. I knew that if I didn't have the answer, I could go find it. I'm super good at problem solving. I'm really good at communicating. I really have like a sixth sense for when something bad's going to happen. Like I just do. And I don't know how to explain it. And I don't know how anyone really can when you feel the way that you feel. I'm not psychic or anything, but it's like, when you have a bad feeling or like, like I really listen to my intuition a lot because that's what's guided me my whole life. So, femininity, right? When that's also being put down in my profession, right? And I think the other thing that's really interesting too is one thing I will tell you, and I don't know how I classify it anymore in my mind. Because I always hear that, oh, I wish you would have pulled me over. Oh my gosh, I would have done crimes just so you could handcuff me. Like I hear that all the time. And to be honest with you, it's like pretty degrading, right? Mm-hmm. But I also I've been called so many names and I've had so many things said to me throughout my life that like, I don't take it personally at this point anymore. I think I did at one point. Like at one point it was just kind of like, oh, like you're hypersexualizing me based off of something I did for a living. That's fucking weird. Mm-hmm. It's hard for me because I'm just like, huh? But if I'm being honest with you, I would say that a lot of my sexual identity was tied up in law enforcement because that's where I felt the most confident. That's where I felt the most.
That's a flip on it.
Yeah. Like honestly, I'll tell you what, like the most confident I ever felt was walking into a place in uniform and knowing that I could solve whatever was happening. And again, like confidence, right? Like that translates right over into like your sex. It does translate into your sexuality, right? Like your ability to have power in a situation or your ability to have any type of, someone trusting you immediately or whatever. Like it's interesting because I never saw it that way, not until I went through lots of years of therapy, that I was able to finally verbalize and say like, yeah, like I think a lot of my feminine and like sexual identity is tied up in my last career. And that is really weird. Like coming out of that career and being like, well, who the fuck am I? First of all, who is Natalie at her core? Secondly, am I confident anymore? Do I have that same type of like presence when I enter a room? Like, if people don't know me as an officer, like, do I have any value? Like, does anybody like see like the good in me? Does anybody see that I am smart, that I have way more to offer than just like my long blonde hair and, at the time, like my like cool, like muscular body? Like, does anybody else see anything in me other than what I look like on the outside? Like, and what I did for a living that seemed to be kind of badass and cool.
Yeah. And I guess like, how, especially like on social media, like feminine energy, like mm-hmm. I mean my feminine era. Mm-hmm. Do you subscribe to that? I mean, like, how do I say this? Like, it's just feminine energy. Like, do you feel feminine? And
I do now.
Is that does that matter now to you?
It does matter to me now, especially because, and it's funny because I didn't know how much that played into my relationships until being the breadwinner. The whole time every relationship I've been in, I've been the breadwinner. And that may not translate to some men, but I hope that what I'm about to say rings true somewhere, because when you are forced to be in your masculine as a woman on a consistent basis, you lose yourself completely.
Ooh.
You really do. Like, because if I'm doing your job and my job, and I'm also kind of like being your mom because I'm taking care of fucking everything.
That's fair. Yeah.
It's not fair for me to be the provider and the nurturer all in one, while you just kind of willy-nilly do whatever the fuck you want. And you also get to use my body. Like, that's, to me, like, that is crazy, right? And so I come from this religion where it's like, you have to submit to your husband. Your husband is your meal ticket into heaven, in fact. In the Mormon religion, you have to be married in the temple, and that is your way into heaven. In the highest ranks of heaven, it's through my husband.
Ugh,
and
yikes.
You have to know, I mean, that psychological piece, right? So I can't have kids, so I don't fit that mold. I don't subscribe to patriarchy at all, because in my mind, I'm like, I'm my own person. You shouldn't tell me what I can wear, what I can say, what I do with my body. Like, that's not up to you. It's mine. Imagine if the government came out and was just like, okay, all men have to have vasectomies. No one would go for it. Come on, let's be real, nope. Right? But yet here we are having this big conflict about abortion.
Which is still a conversation.
It is. How crazy is that?
Roe versus Wade should have been, like, that should have been it.
That should have been it. And you want to know what's crazy about that is all these Republicans or conservative, right? I won't even put it on a certain party, but all these people that don't agree with abortion. Here's the problem. Abortion law, it also covers when women have miscarriages, they have to have what's called a D&C. Well, a D&C is a medical abortion to make sure that the fetus is completely out of the woman's body and it doesn't turn cancerous or against the woman's body. So that covers that kind of medicine. So you have women dying in hospitals now because they can't figure out how to get approval from the top of the hospital to do a D&C. So women are dying, literally dying. You now also, infertility law came after Roe v. Wade. So now there's no safety. So for me, I can have my own kids through surrogacy because I still have ovaries, so I have eggs. So if I wanted to harvest my eggs, I'd have to go through IVF and then house those in a hospital. Well, there are certain states now that are called like safety states or home states. So California is one of them. The reason why they exist now and why it came out after Roe v. Wade, because there was so much turmoil coming out in certain states like Ohio, where if you have embryos that are viable, you can no longer destroy them. That's no longer your choice. If you destroy them, it's murder. That's insane. If you have viable embryos that you are not able to financially, push forward into surrogacy or otherwise, they would force you to give your embryos to someone else.
Wow.
And imagine, right? I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it, right? Personally, like I probably would. Just knowing my personality, I'd probably, yeah, for sure. To give you the opportunity to have a child, I would do that for you. But imagine if you're not comfortable with that or you have a partner that's not comfortable with that. Imagine you being forced to do that because it's against the law to be, after you've gone through all this emotional and hormonal treatment and horrible, horrible things to even have a viable embryo. Imagine then like being forced that you now don't get a choice as to what happens with that. Right? All of those laws came after Roe v. Wade. So now we've gotten rid of Roe v. Wade. Well, where does infertility come in? So all of the... You leaving? He's such a sweet guy. I love him so much. So imagine, right? Like, you've got all these people that are like, don't do abortion. Okay, well, so who's going to raise these embryos? Who's going to raise these kids? Is the government now suddenly going to provide childcare? I mean, come the fuck on. Like, you really think that, like, we've got all these problems solved? You're fucking wrong. We just created a whole new version of issues. And now you've got 13-year-olds and 12-year-olds who are getting raped and pregnant, who are giving themselves abortions in their bathrooms and killing themselves. I mean, people don't think this is real, but it is real. It is so real, right? And this is coming from somebody who can't even fucking have kids herself.
Which is it's such an interesting take, especially from someone who can't have kids.
Right.
I'm very curious on. I've been since the beginning, since you said that. I'm like, wow. Like, do you want kids?
With the right partner.
Do you have kids?
No, I don't have kids. I think with the right partner, maybe. But I've also come to a place in my life too where it's like, do I? I don't know. Our world is very different from the time, and I I look at things now, especially, and I don't know. Like I just know, maybe being through a marriage and a divorce, I'm so grateful there wasn't children involved. I can just say that. You know, it was hard enough with our dogs. Like I can't even imagine there being an actual human being involved in that situation and how tumultuous that divorce was. Like I cannot fathom, because it's been horrific with 2 dogs.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
Yeah.
Breakups suck.
yeah, I mean, you know, there's only so much that, you know, you can do. And some people say, well, they're just dogs. Well, imagine I come from a land of I can't have kids, so they are my kids.
There you go. That's what I was thinking too. Like,
I mean, these are my like little ride or dies with me 24/7 kind of a deal. So to be honest, I mean, there's nothing that I can, you know, so some people like, I know there's like, it's just a fucking animal. Well, not so in my opinion, not in my perspective, right? Like if you're going to take responsibility of an animal and domesticate it or whatever, like that is now your responsibility. They depend on you. They are like a child. I once heard a veterinarian say to me, I'm in pediatric medicine. Because imagine, animals never go out of the kid stage. They can't talk to you. They can't communicate with you, right? Like you really just have to get to know each other enough to where you can see the signs of like when your animal is getting sick.
That's true.
Truly. Like if you're that close with your animals, you can sense it before something bad happens. Yeah, sorry. I know we've tangented a lot, and I apologize. My brain kind of works that way.
And that's literally what the podcast is
Okay.
about. And like when I put this together, like I leave a lot of this stuff anyway, just so it's super as raw as possible. But when I usually do these podcasts, I usually do them in one take, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And so it's like when having these little breaks in between is so good for me, because I'm not having to think on this fly all the time, and I can process what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
And usually someone's just like, this crazy story, and I'm just like, okay, what's the next question? What's the next question? And one of my goals, and I always say this, like one of my biggest goals for doing any episode is get people to say, if I can get you to say that's a good question, it's already a good episode. You did that once already, and I like subconsciously my heart fucking blew up.
Good.
Like I was like, she did the thing.
No, and you're honestly like, I mean, you've probably heard this before. I mean, you're a natural at this. This is like your calling. It's a great thing because you can have open conversation. Nothing that I've said to you has fazed you, is what it seems like, to be honest. And maybe it has, but it doesn't come across that way. You know what I mean?
If anything, I'm more interested in like I always want to ask more questions, and sometimes I don't even know boundaries, you know.
Oh no, you're good. I mean, literally, I've literally told you like the most traumatic thing in my life already, right? Like the fact that I can now, and obviously it's been a lot of years now, like the fact I can now openly talk to a stranger, knowing this is going to be going out to strangers, right, that don't know who the fuck I am, about my medical PTSD and like what's happened to me. And like, you know, my diagnosis is very rare, but like the only time it was ever put out in the public eye was on Survivor. There was a chick that actually had my same diagnosis.
No shit.
Yeah, and so she became kind of this voice and this mouthpiece, and she was like I don't know, she was like in like some sort of beauty queen, pageant queen, whatever. And so she also had a platform there to talk about it as well. And I didn't know that before she was on Survivor. And then all of a sudden there was all these talkings about, in the small community of all of us that have this, about how she was being put on national television and talking about this condition. It was the first time I thought, holy shit, like, how do you talk about this openly, first of all? Because if you start to really look in depth into the diagnosis, like, imagine what people are, you know, because I know how I was bullied by my, you know, high school ex-boyfriend, and the things that were said to me and the horrible things that, like, you know, I never imagined, like, somebody, like, bullying me the way that I was bullied. I could have never guessed that that's the direction things would have gone, you know?
And I guess where does that put you, like, after that? So after your divorce, now I want to get personal.
Of course, yeah, no, that's totally fine.
Now let's get personal.
Yes.
After all that, what's your dating life like? What are you currently with somebody? Does that make dating difficult for you? You know what you have. You know what's going on with you. Does that make you more selective with your partners? You're like, this is the part where I'm fine. After all that.
No, honestly, you know, here's the thing. Like, I think, especially, again, growing up in a very conservative, sheltered situation, right? Before my ex-husband, I'd only been with 2 other men.
Necking.
No.
Not even.
Sex.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the term necking.
It's not funny. Yeah, no. I'd had 2 partners before my ex-husband, and man, this is hard to admit, you know, and I'm just gonna be straight about it because like there's no reason not to be. But I think I definitely did the whole true ex-Mormon, also getting out of a 10-year relationship, kind of gets the fuckets and just does not give a shit. And that sounds bad. You know, I'm not proud of it, like for sure. But I think there for a second, like I just really just did not give a fuck. Like I just didn't, you know, because like nobody gave a fuck about me either. Like it was so like I will say this too, and I again like this is probably gonna get a little bit triggering, you know, with sexual assault. Like I will tell you, like I had been sexually assaulted when I was a cop by a person I went to high school with. And that PTSD really did not surface because that got filed away in the filing cabinet. And it wasn't until my depression diagnosis and everything else and my PTSD diagnosis, all of a sudden I was put on so many different antidepressants and none of them worked. None of them. So I ended up being put on ketamine for depression.
That's tough.
Yeah, and I was
tough.
like, that was like when ketamine was like not a thing here in the States. They've been using it in Sweden and a couple of other states across, you know, the pond. And my psychiatrist, like, he was a younger guy, very much was going through like all like the psychedelic conferences. Like he was very much like up and coming and like really believed that there were some real benefits to these, you know, new/not new drugs. And he begged me in the beginning, like, please, like, can you please give it a chance? And I'm like, nope. Because all I knew about ketamine is like a date rape drug. It was a party drug, right? I'm coming from law enforcement, so I'm like, absolutely not. It was already hard enough for me to be on medication in general. Like I used to only take Advil. I mean, like, what the fuck, you know? So I get put on ketamine for depression finally because I came in, I was so suicidal. I was so fucking broken. And I like broke down in his office and I was like, I'll do anything. I will do anything to not feel this way because I have done everything I can. I'm in therapy. I came immediately after like I first had these feelings, like in this like mental breakdown is really like what happened. Like I immediately put myself in therapy. I immediately found myself a psychiatrist. Like I did not wait on those things. I didn't put that on anyone else. Like I took that responsibility immediately because I was scared. I was so scared. And, you know, after trying, you know, Zoloft, Prozac, Lexapro, like Wellbutrin, like all of these different drugs that did not help. Some made them so much worse. Yeah, I finally did. I just like gave in. I was just like, okay, fine. Like if you think this is going to help me, like I will try it. And honestly, I can sit here and say ketamine saved my life. Truly, it saved my life. I don't think I would be here if it wasn't for ketamine. And, you know, going through that, the ketamine is really interesting because it works in your subconscious and in your, you know, it creates new neural pathways. And it was almost like going through some of these treatments and stuff. I all of a sudden was like, holy shit, I was experiencing PTSD symptoms and I didn't know what it was from. And then all of a sudden it was like, holy fuck, like I was assaulted. And like that got filed away so far in like the trauma filing cabinet that I then had to like face it. I had to really look at like what happened to me. The fact I was a cop and that happened to me was so hard on my ego. So, cause I know better, right? Like as far as like, I should have fought the guy. I should have done something, you know, and I didn't. Like I woke up to being assaulted and I asked him to stop and he said, no, I'm not. Like I'm almost finished.
God damn.
And I just remember, like I don't remember a whole lot, but I just remember him even walking me out to my car. Like I let this man who just freaking assaulted me and violated me walk me out to my car. His parents went to high school with my parents. Like still to this day, I always wonder like, should I still go and report this?
Those people who are close to you.
Oh yeah, like I went to high school with this person.
Always close people, you know.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the comfortability that this guy had, like the audacity, like, and like even too, like, you know, he knew I trusted him too because like he was a member of the church that, you know, we both grew up in, right? Like there was a lot of trust there. you know, because I held him to, you know, more of a pedestal, feeling like, oh, like he's a good guy, like he goes to church, he's God-fearing. You know, no, fuck no. Like those are the most dangerous people I realize now, to be honest with you. And I mean, maybe that's going to be a blanket statement, but like, to be honest, people who are repressed and have a lot of shame, they are some dangerous and scary individuals because they're not willing to talk about what they think and what they, you know, deviantly might have going on behind the scenes, but they'll fucking act on it.
Do you feel that sometimes in some points of your life being deviant?
You what?
Even, like, are you yourself, like, if you put that mirror to you with that repression and everything, do you feel like you've been or you can act as a deviant as well in your own pleasures?
Honestly, I feel like I was very naive coming out into the dating world as of 2023. Right, because that's like when I came out into the dating world after being married for as long as I was and in that relationship for 10 years.
Shitty?
So fucking terrible. What fucking happened? It was never like this before. Like, I don't know what happened, and I don't know what the mentality has shifted into, but holy shit. Like, I mean, I can tell you now, and now I understand it, especially talking to other women. And of course, this is from a women's perspective, right? Like, I'm sure men have something along the lines of similar or whatever. But the amount of men that think that because they buy you dinner, you now owe them something is insane. Like, it makes me not want to date at all. In fact, I would rather be alone, to be honest. Like, I've been in several situations now that I know that if I wouldn't have had sex with them, I would have been fucking assaulted. It would have been violent.
Jesus.
And honestly, that's like so shitty, right? Because like here I am, I've got all this background, I've got all this history, I've got all this experience in law enforcement, and yet I'm still finding myself in situations where I'm thinking, I've done all the right things, I've vetted this person, people know where I am, you know what I mean? Like, I've literally gone through like the whole gamut of checklist of like how to be safe, and yet I'm still in a situation where if I don't have sex with this person, it's going to be worse for me. And I'm not the only person in my circle, and I will tell you, like, the circle of people I have around me, high caliber individuals. Like, I am very, very lucky, and I will say that too. I mean, like, my friends are some of the greatest fucking people on the planet, truly. And I believe that to my core. Sometimes I'm just like, why do you love me as much as I love you? Like, it's crazy. Like, I feel so unworthy sometimes of the love that I receive, because it's just, these are from people that are just so incredible. Like, they've got their shit together. They're sweet people. They give, like, more than they take. Like, you know, and so when I talk to some of these other women who have been through the exact same thing, you know, it really doesn't matter. Like, you really can't control other people, I guess is what it really comes down to. Even if you're like the most safest person on the planet, like, you can't control what another person's going to do, right? It's the reason why this whole conversation of would you choose a man or a bear in the woods, bear every day, bear 1,000 times out of 10, you know, like, right. Because there is a power dynamic there. There really is. And like, whether somebody wants to admit that or not, and I don't think all men are bad, right? And we'll go back to the entrepreneurship question because it does play into this. Like, I truly don't believe that men are bad. I grew up with all brothers. My parents are still married. Like, I don't have, like, here we're sitting next to Mickey and Aaron. You know, I can say, like, even like all the men I work with at my company currently, my business partner that lives in Corvallis is a guy. Like, I think men are amazing. I think you guys have so much to offer. I think your perspectives are like so invaluable. I think that you guys have been demonized a lot. Like, so coming from my perspective, like, it's not because I hate men. It's literally because, like, you guys can be very, very dangerous. Like, for me as a woman, like, you have a different, like, the power dynamic is just different. Like, it is. Like, I'm not saying men can't be assaulted. Like, I'm not saying that at all. But look, I love you. Look at the power dynamic. Look at the difference, right? Like, look at the statistics. Just minimum. Let's just look at numbers, sure, and they speak for themselves, right? Like, we don't even have to get into the emotional and like the psychological bullshit of it. Like, the numbers speak for themselves. Like, and imagine that's just the reported assaults. Imagine how much goes underreported. I can say that for sure because I know, you know. And I have to tread very lightly about what I say here because this is like an open criminal investigation. But I felt like I could report my last assault because it happened to multiple people and I would be believed. But the other assaults that have happened to me in the last year, I don't feel like anybody would believe me. So it's hard to feel like I could hold somebody accountable when somebody's gonna be like, oh, well, like they're gonna deny it, you know, like, and what then from there, like, then what?
Right. And I guess, was it we accept the love that we think we deserve?
Totally.
What does that mean to you? What does loving you look like? How do you want to be loved?
You know, I think that's morphed, and thank God it's morphed over time. God, like, thank God it's morphed. Because I think, again, like going back to being like a boundaryless wonder, right? Like you let a lot of things slide. You let a lot of people walk all over you. They know they can too. That's the other thing. That's like it's so fucked up because people who find people like me or who I used to be, I'm hoping that I'm recovered from that. It's very easy to take advantage of someone who's nice. Like I'm working on how to be kind, not nice. Because kindness doesn't look like just being flat out nice, right? Like kindness looks like being, you know, able to say no. Able to say, no, that's my boundary. Like, no, thank you. You know, not like even just like the smallest thing. Like I had someone who's a friend of mine like say something to me the other day, and we joke a lot, right? Like I'm a very sarcastic person. I'm super jokey. Like everything, like to me, you can laugh at pretty much anything, right? Like there's always a silver lining in things,
too,
right?
so
Exactly. So like we have to laugh at our trauma because what the fuck. But you know, something he said to me while he was intoxicated, I mean, I read that. It was super triggering, right? It's something my ex-husband had said to me several times, but it's just like, whoa, dude, like, that's fucking aggressive. Like,
towards you?
Towards me, yeah.
Wow.
It was something like, he said something like, you fucking idiot, or something like that. And it was so harsh. Like, I was sitting with my friend Sandra, and I showed her the text. She's like, what the fuck? Like, who the fuck is that? And why are they talking to you like that? And I think it's just interesting, right? Like, people who feel like they can talk to me like that or treat me that way, like it always makes me like wonder in the back of my mind, like this person knows I'm super sensitive. This person knows I'm super, super, super like kind, sweet. Like I'm not aggressive. Like I'm just not. Like it's not. I wish sometimes I could be like, and that sounds maybe crazy, but like when I watch like some of my girlfriends who are like super upfront and what people would call quote unquote bitchy, they get everything they want in life. And it's interesting. Like it's a very, to watch it, like, and it's not because they're bitchy, it's because they've got boundaries. Like, honestly, that's what it comes down to. Like, if you're going to treat them a certain way, like, they're not going to fucking put up with your shit. So, like, you're done. Like, you've lost them completely. And they keep that boundary and they don't ever look back. And I think, you know, for me, it's taken a long time to get here because I do find myself being so forgiving and, like, seeing people's potential and loving them for it. Right? Separating their mental health from who they are, right? Because who you are as a person is not your mental health. It's not your struggles. It's not, right? Like if you're a good person at your core and you've got good character and like you would do good things, like I don't see some of the bad things you've done and characterize you as that. And I think, you know, with my ex-husband, you know, I still to this very moment will always wish him the best. And I hope he finds the love for himself that he so desperately needs to. Because he's a good person. Like I didn't divorce him because I don't love him. You know, I walked away from that because it was unhealthy and it was very difficult for me to do so. And
that's a boundary you set for yourself.
I did.
You saw that.
Finally. Yeah.
Oh, finally. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
Finally. It took a long time.
Fair.
And it was through a lot of hard lessons that I learned. And it wasn't, you know, and I think I put myself in situations too where, you know, I'd sit in front of my therapist and he's just like, Natalie, like, we have talked about this. Like, why are you putting up with this? Like, why are you accepting this? What, you know, so then you really have to dive deep into yourself and go, why am I doing this? What in my childhood did I not receive? Why do I think it's okay for someone to do this and then just automatically forgive them? Like, whereas I think another person in the same situation would be like, fuck no, like, I'm not dealing with that. And like, not that you hate that person, but you just walk away and go, no, thank you. Like, that is a bit like, and now you've lost me, you know? And I think everybody has to handle their situations the way they need to handle them, right? Like in order for you to sleep at night. And I know for me, it was years of therapy, where I really needed to know that there's nothing else I possibly could have ever done in the future to make that situation better. And starting with me, not starting with him, starting with me. that there's nothing else I could have done. And then outside of me, there's nothing else I could have done. So that now, when I lay my head on the pillow at night, that I don't go to bed with regrets. I don't go to bed wondering, what if I did this? What if I did that? I really, truly believe that I did everything I possibly could. I really, like, to my core, I believe that. And it's not for lack of heartbreak. It's not for lack of, you know, are there some days that I'm like, man, did I just blow up my whole life? Like, why did I do that? You know, of course, like, your mind questions things. When you walk away from traumatic situations, you start to just remember good things. You start to kind of romanticize certain things. You start to realize that how fucking terrible the dating world is and go, holy shit, would I rather go to a known toxicity and a known abusive situation or go create myself a new one? That fucking sucks. Like, you know, you do have a fear. And so do I have a black heart and do I walk around with sludge? No. But do I walk around a little bit with like a fear of someone not being who they say they are and then that rearing their ugly head at some point? For sure. I think about it a lot and it closes me off, and I know it does. Like, I know, like, the moment where I don't feel safe in communicating, like, I'm pretty much done. Like, that's
a big one, though.
It's a huge one.
That is a biggie.
Yeah. And honestly, again, like, we go back to femininity and masculinity, right? If I want to be in my feminine, I have to feel safe. So here I've been forced to be in my masculine from my previous career and then all the relationships I chose into. I no longer want that. So if I'm choosing into my feminine, that means that whatever man I choose to be around, they are a safe person for me, right? Like, that is so important to me because that's what keeps me in my feminine energy. That's what keeps me feeling
do you
like.
Search for that though?
I do.
Or do you let it just happen?
I mean, if it happens, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be around somebody who allows me to be in that space. As far as dating goes, if I can tell immediately that that's like not going to be a thing, nah, I'm good. I'm walking away from that. I would much rather be alone. I'm very happy by myself. I can do everything by myself too. That's the other thing, right? Like, I have had to rebuild my life from my divorce. Divorce will financially wreck you no matter who you are. And, you know, can I open my door? Sure as fuck can. Can I take my garbage out? Yes. Can I take care of myself? Can I buy myself flowers? Can I pay my bills? Yeah, I can do all those things. I've done all those things my whole fucking life. Like, nobody's freaking giving me a handout. So if you're going to come into my life, you best be adding to it because anything else is taking away. Anything else is taking away because I can provide for myself. So what do you bring to the table?
What does that? Like, good, you're setting the boundaries high on that one. But what does that look like for a stranger then to, like, say, because, like, if they're trying to approach you then, because, like, and maybe I'm looking more into this, but you have RBF heart.
I do?
You do.
Oh, no.
You do, a little bit.
I'm sorry.
But I've always said this since day one. People with RBF are the sweetest people you'll ever meet. It's always the people that are super nice, like, right up front. Questionable.
Yeah.
But RBFs, I gravitate towards people like that because, like, bring your mean ass over here. I love you.
I love you.
I love you. Bring your mean ass over here. Because, like, that just means that you know how to interact with other people. And once they get to know you, I feel like that's the most important part because then it means something.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I guess that's the vibe I'm getting off of you.
That's
yeah,
so
you're
funny.
smiley, but, like, you definitely have a mean face to you. But definitely, I was not wrong. You definitely have. There's a lot more layers. You're an onion. You know that?
Oh, totally. And that's the thing is, I think that's what makes dating hard too. I'll be honest with you, right? Like, if somebody doesn't want to take the time to get to know me and all the things that I'm about, like, really, you're only getting to see the tip of the iceberg. Like, I'm fun. I'm bubbly. I own a business. I have all these, like, fun surface level things. Oh, you used to be a cop. Oh, that's cool. Like, whatever. Like, some people fucking hate that and they won't even date me or talk to me, which is fine. I get that. Like, you have your own bias and that is what it is. Like, I can't control that. Which, that was, like, the weirdest part about coming into dating. They're like, you used to do what? Fuck you then. I'm like, oh shit. Okay. My bad, you know. Or it's like this hypersexualized thing. I really don't find that there's a lot of respect, to just be honest with you. And again, I know, like, the time we're living in right now is a very unique one. But I do find it's either ACAB type attitude or hypersexualized. And it's so disappointing. Like, it's so disappointing because it's like, can I just, like, work a job and just be a woman in that job? Like, who fucking gives a shit what it is? Like, yeah, I'm a woman. I work hard. Like, just leave it at that. Like, you know, like, yes, it's dangerous, all that stuff. Then just have respect for the fact that I was willing to put myself in a dangerous situation instead of, like, making it this, like, hyper weird oh, well, most women wouldn't do that. Like, it's just weird. It's just weird. Like, I would never approach a man and be like, wow, most men wouldn't be a hairdresser. Like, who gives a shit? That's fucking cool. Like, you're that talented? Man, I wish I could fucking do that shit. Like, in my mind, it's so confusing to me to, like, sexualize it. It truly is. Like, I don't understand that piece. But that is something that's so consistent for me. So it's just my experience. Maybe that's not everyone else's experience.
Devil's advocate, have you hypersexualized somebody else?
In, like, a profession?
Or in general?
In general. I mean, remember, I didn't come from a very hypersexualized background. So that's a very different realm for me regardless, right? Like, if you look at all of my exes too, none of them look the same. So I don't have like a type. I don't have like a specific anything. Like, honestly, like, personality goes a long way for me, right? Like, you really... I remember, like, I knew when I wanted to marry my ex-husband, we were sitting at lunch, and we heard a mom talking to their son or daughter. I can't remember, honestly. And they were like, Mommy, I want fries. And she's like, I'm sorry, honey. Like, I don't have enough money for that, whatever. And we immediately went to go stand up at the same time to go pay for these fries, right? And I knew in that moment, I was like, I want to marry this guy. Because if you're willing to see someone else's suffering, and if you can do something about it, like, that takes ego so far fucking out of things, right? Like, and he's not the type of guy that was doing stuff for the recognition. He would have done it without them knowing if he could have, right? Kind of a thing. Like, that just was the type of person, and is the type of person he is. He's very, very generous, very giving, very thoughtful. Like, I would say one of the most thoughtful people I've ever met in my entire life. So for me, like, it goes so much deeper than what you look like. Obviously you have to have attraction to somebody. Like, I'm not going to throw that off the table. Like, that is 100% a real thing. You have to have chemistry. You have to have attraction. Like, if those things aren't there, you're fucking doomed, right? We are animals at the end of the day. We are mammals, whatever, right? Like,
Human nature takes over, man.
It totally does. And so it is part of the equation. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that's not a real thing, because it totally is. It has to coincide. But if you're just a good looking dude with fucking nothing in you, I'm good. Thank you. Like, move along. I'm good.
Do you have a version of what's good looking? Because it sounds like you're all over the place with your dating history.
I am all the place. All over the place.
So can you pinpoint what features you find attractive in a person?
Smile, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. Hair is another thing. Isn't that funny? Yeah, hair. Maybe it's because I have such crazy, like, long hair and stuff, like, and dreads, right? I definitely, I don't know. It's funny. It's like, I love a guy with, like, personality, and, like, hair shows a lot of personality on a person. Like, and I do think, like, because we're talking only physically here, right? Like,
correct.
Again, it's tough for me because it's like, I don't have necessarily a physical type. Now, if you don't take care of yourself and it's very obvious, that's hard for me to get on board with, because that also means that I'll be taking care of you. No, thank you. I don't want to do that. So psychologically for me, like, I see someone who doesn't take care of themselves and I'm like, I'm good. Because it's not because you're not physically a certain way. It's literally because your lack of self-care tells me a lot about how you feel about yourself. And if you feel that way about you, I can only imagine how you feel about other people on the outside.
Ah, okay. I see what you're saying.
So, I mean, it has nothing to do necessarily aesthetically. It just, for me, that's a huge red flag. That if you're not willing to do the things for yourself that you know you need to, I know what it's like to be in relationships and taking care of a man, and I'm just not willing to do it again.
That sounds exhausting, though.
It is.
It sounds super exhausting.
It is. It's like being a parent to a grown-ass adult. Like, It's terrible. I don't remember, and I don't know, and I'll never be able to pinpoint when I became a parent instead of a partner in my marriage. Like, I'll never be able to pinpoint that. I just know at some point that shift happened, and it was irreversible. I mean, I tried everything. But, like, and, like, when I talk about this stuff too, like, I know sometimes it can come across when people especially talk about past relationships, I think it can come across like, oh, I'm a victim of it. Like, I don't feel that way. I chose into that relationship. I chose to stay as long as I did, and I chose out of it, right?
Sweetheart, you do not sound like a victim.
Okay.
I'll tell you right now.
Okay.
Just because you have that RBF does not mean you have a victim mentality. I did not get victim from you right away.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that comes across, because for me, like, I definitely know the role that I play, and I think it's very important that we all acknowledge the role that you play in all relationships, and the relationship with yourself and the relationship with others, right? Like, part of the reason why my marriage failed was because of me, 100%. Like, I did not communicate in the beginning. I didn't realize that until I was going through a lot of therapy and had depression and PTSD and anxiety. Like, I didn't realize that I wasn't communicating things that I needed. I was just being like, whatever you want, whatever you want. I was very agreeable. I was very non-opinionated, you know, and that would frustrate my ex-husband too. Like, bless his heart. Like, I'm sure putting up with me in that regard, he was probably fucking sick of it. And I understand. I really do. Like, especially coming out of it, I'm like, damn, I'm sorry. Like, I really am. Like, for the things that I fell short in, right, which is like decision-making or maybe not knowing like all of the things that came with ADHD, I'm sure like I was not the most organized person. I know I'm not. I still am not the most organized person on the planet. And I know that type of chaos triggered his PTSD. I know that did. Especially now, like looking back, I'm like, damn, like I probably was putting him through hell and I didn't know it. Like I really, you know, the things that you're not self-aware of, especially too in a relationship. And then when you get to have perspective, you're just like, damn, I fucking suck. Like, you know, like, damn it, you know, and all you really can do is just be better going forward. But, you know, even I think about all the times too. Hang on one sec. King Suka Lounge. Okay, whatever. Oh, sorry, wrong number. Okay. You know, I think about even just the times that I'm not a yelling type of a person. Like I don't fight that way. Also, I suck at fighting. I'm the type of person like a month later, I'm like, fuck, I should have said that. You know, like that's like when like that should have been the comeback.
I do that minutes afterwards.
No, I fucking wish, dude. Like I'm just not.
I'm like, fuck, I should have said that.
I know. I know. I'm not that way at all. I'm still sitting there trying to like figure out.
You play out scenarios in your head too of what you should have done all the time. Like
all the
literally,
time.
like half of my brain is like just scenarios I should have done differently.
Mm-hmm.
I would have done this. I would have not.
Yeah.
I would have done it like this. Would I've done? No. Well, no, never.
I know. And it's so rough. Like, and that's the thing is like, I think about the times I did react to him yelling at me or calling me names or like, I still can remember it. Like, and I don't know how many fingers that is, like, you know, how many times I reacted, but you know, even just one time, like I feel like a fucking piece of shit, even though he maybe instigated it or said the things or whatever. Like it still was a choice for me to react, you know, but like it took me years to get to that point. It took me like 5 years into the marriage to even tell him I was mad at him. If that tells you anything about even the mentality of growing up in the LDS church, being a woman and having emotions, especially negative ones, like that's just like not a thing. And there's all this toxic positivity that comes with it. So you have to be very careful because I can genuinely look at you and say, like, yes, I'm a very positive person. I really am. Like, I really do see the good in everything. It's almost annoying, to be honest with you. Even my ex-husband, like, he freaked out at me one time. He's like, you don't have to be fucking positive. You know what I mean? Like, and, like, that used to piss him off, right? Because I just constantly can see, like, good things. But there is such thing as toxic positivity. There is such thing as just being positive just because, you know, your salvation's on the line. Like, that type of shit's bullshit, and it sucks. And it feels very surface level. And so I can't do surface level, if you can't tell, in a conversation such as this. Like, I could never just sit here and tell you, oh, yeah, the last 2 years have been hard. But, like, hi. Like, there's no way that I could sit and answer some of these questions without being like, well, do you want to know about this? Because that plays into this and this plays into that. You know, it's tough to tell my story at all because there is so much involved. I mean, how
do you tell it? Not only just like a new person you're trying to date, like, because I'm sure you have to like let them know, like, just a heads up, this is why I'm the way I am.
Yeah. If they have enough interest, though, that's the other thing. You have to remember, I feel like in the dating world right now, people just don't take the time to get to know each other. They just don't. And not that I've experienced.
When was the last time you went on a date and why didn't it work out?
The last time I went on a date, I was in Utah visiting. And went on a date with a guy that I had gone on a date with last September. And it's really just because we don't live in the same state. I truly believe that if we lived in the same state, because, you know, our first date, he had like pulled out all the strings. He like made this like amazing homemade dinner. Like it was honestly, it was such a great first date. Like it really was. And like we really got along. Like, and it sucked. We had just not gotten on to the place where I was like, oh, by the way, I'm fucking moving. So like within the first 10 minutes of me being at his house, I was like, hey, like, I have to tell you, like, I am moving, but I'm going to be traveling back and forth to Utah. And you could just see just like the life leave his body. He was just like, oh my God. Like,
work out.
yeah, like, cause he was just like, I was so invested. That's what he said to me. And I was like, oh my God, like that pierced me to like a point where I was just like, fuck, dude. Like I was not trying to like cause any
Did you
type
feel like
of,
you were leading him on or something?
I don't know. Like, and I didn't realize it until we saw each other again in Utah. You know, I was like, did you ever think I would be back here again? Because he asked me to go to like a concert up in the canyons, and it was nice. Like we like went back to his house. We're sitting there talking, and I was like, did you ever feel like I'd ever be here again? Right? Like we've been sitting and watching raccoon videos for an hour, and he's like, honestly, no. He's like, I really, really didn't. And we had an opportunity to actually have like a full open conversation about the fact that like he didn't know I was moving and all of that. And honestly, like, and I told him, I was just like, you know, having some hindsight and perspective, like I'm really fucking sorry. Like I was not expecting for us to get along the way that we did. I was not expecting for us to connect the way that we do, to have so much in common, to have so much that we can like actually build upon. Like I really, really wasn't expecting that. I'd gone on so many fucking empty dates that like I just wasn't expecting that. I really wasn't, you know, like I could tell that I really liked him, but it was hard to get your hopes up, and it's hard at all to get your hopes up in dating right now. It just is, like, you know, and so sitting and having that conversation, you know, when I left, I was like, you know, you can always come to Oregon. Like, you could always come visit if you want, you know, and he's like, well, you can always come back to Utah, you know, and you know,
okay,
and I'm like, you're right, you know, and because I'm a remote employee, right? Like, he's not, and he's like a fucking rocket scientist. So it's like, you know, and he just looked at me, he's like, you know, I'll be here if you come back. And so it's tough. It's like you think about stuff like that and you're just like, damn, like that one hurts. Like that one really fucking hurts, you know? But like, that's honestly the reason why it didn't. And I would say again, like that's one person who I feel like if we were to go through the layers and get to know each other, like it would be a really beautiful relationship. It really would be.
But as Utah guy though.
Yeah.
You have to go to no Oregon booty.
Oh God.
Because you're telling me a lot of like Utah men, so I'm starting to wonder if you have a type now. Like
No.
if you're not from Utah, it's not happening, because that's the most connection I've seen. But I have not once heard you say this dude from Oregon.
No, yeah, no. I mean, I think
huh?
I've been hung up on a guy here for a long time. I really do, and I think.
What does that mean for you, being hung up?
I think that I've tried to date other men to get over the connection that he and I have, because he's just not in a place to be in a relationship. And I understand, like I really do. And we care about each other a lot as friends. Like we're very, very close that way. And like, you know, and that's hard. Like and me admitting that to myself, I think I finally like came to like that conclusion of like probably like 5-ish months ago, that I was really dating and trying to connect with other people to get over how I feel about that situation, because
Rebounds never work though.
I know they don't work. A and B, you know, I started to date a guy, and it's really scary because like obviously, right, we're in Oregon, so he doesn't have social media, so I'm hoping he's never gonna hear any of this, but you know, honestly, great on paper. We align on every amount of viewpoint, from LGBTQIA rights to women's rights to anything you can imagine. Like, we truly align, right? But I could tell after the first week of going on dates, I was just like, something's not aligned. And I don't know what it is, and I can feel it in my gut, right? Like,
interesting, that gut feeling again.
That gut feeling. And I was just like, man, something's up. Like, and I shouldn't feel this way, because this man is genuinely, like, there's nothing wrong with this person. Truly. He's a good-looking guy. He's got a great job. He's got so much ambition. Oh, my God, this guy has so much ambition. Like, I know he will make something for himself. This man went from homelessness, being kicked out in, you know, high school, getting back up on his feet, never went into drugs, never got into anything bad, like, through music is how he got out of homelessness. And he's just, like, you would never know that this guy has gone through any of this. Like, he doesn't wear it as a badge of honor, doesn't wear it as a chip on his shoulder. The fact that I even know that about his story, I feel honored to know that part of his story, because honestly, like what a fucking tragic thing to go through as a fucking teenager because your mom's pissed that you're hanging out with your girlfriend. Like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, I know parents make mistakes, but like, holy shit. Like, he's a good kid, and he's always been a good kid. He still to this day takes care of his mom, and his mom's a fucking drug addict, you know? So it's rough. Like, you know, he's got this like crazy story. And so he's come from nothing. He's made something of himself. He's a good person. He gives back. Like, he's a good friend. He's a good son, you know? And so for me, again, like, you know, he'd show up to my house with flowers. He would come into my house and be like, where's your garbage? I'm going to take it out for you. I never touched a fucking door. I never paid for a fucking thing. So all these things we've now talked about where I've never been able to be in my feminine. Now I've met this guy who I'm not having to ask him to do shit. He just does it because he wants to. Right? Like he would tell me, like, we got into a conversation one time. He's like, I wish I could do more for you. I'm not in a space, you know, financially to do more for you, but I want you to know, like, I want to do these things for you. And I'm working towards that so I can do these things for you. And I just sat there and I'm just like, but why? Like, what? Like, it's confusing for me, right? But like, if I'm being honest with you, if I look at my brothers and the way they treat their spouses and even my parents, this is how my dad treats my mom. This is how my brothers treat their spouses. So it's very hard for me, right? Like, I'm being faced with somebody who I don't have to fucking tell him how to freaking treat me. He just knows how to treat me. He knows without us even having a conversation. Like, he knows that, like, he's going to come walk up to my door to come get me, right? Like, he's going to make sure I get to my door safely. He's going to make sure, even though he knows I can do it myself and I can pay for it myself and I can do all this shit by myself, for him, he's just like, please allow me to do this for you because I can, because I want to. And I know you can do it. And I, you know, and he would acknowledge that all the time. He's like, I know you can do this yourself, but thank you for letting me do it for you. Right? Like, whoa, somebody who's like fucking with it, in tune, gets it. Right? So again, on paper, I should be like, holy shit, you've been who I've been waiting for. We're aligned. Da, da, da. But it's crazy because this bad feeling that I had, or like just this unalignment, right?
Did you find out the bad feeling, or are you still living, like looking on that?
He became so obsessive, dude. So obsessive, like to the point
Is that
where
a bad thing, though?
I would say it was like him experiencing like limerence, honestly. And it was like, you know, like when you're getting called 13 times in a row, or when he sees your car and he's calling you 9 times.
Okay, that's much, but like as far as like an obsession, there should be a level of obsession. Like
totally,
if
but
I'm
it
about
was
you, I want to be about you.
Way too much. And even when I asked for boundaries and space, he was offended by that. He was so offended by it where he would flip it on me, and I'm like, okay, listen, sir, I know what being controlled looks like, and this is controlling. This is not protective. This is not safety. This is not masculine. This is insecure projection
like
onto
he
me.
Thinks you're cheating on him or something? Or
no,
talking
he
to other
just
men?
when I had to go to Utah again. We're not together, right? But he's treating this as if we are exclusive together. And I've already told him, like, dude, like, you don't know me. I don't know you. We got to slow this down. He's like, I'm not looking for a pace. And I said, well, the pace you're going, I'm unable to meet you there. So I even asked him, I was like, please, I would love for you to date other people still too. I think that's important. We haven't known each other very long. I'm not asking for exclusivity because I know for me, I don't know you well enough to give you that part of myself. I just don't. Like, and I think you're fantastic.
Physically or mentally?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both. It was too hard for me. And I felt pressured into the physical piece of it because, you know, he's doing all these wonderful, great things. And then I can see his expectation. And I'm just like, okay, I get that, right? And he would verbally say things and then he would do the opposite. Hey, I don't expect this thing of you physically, but then he'd do the opposite. And I'm like,
So like if you were to give him booty, he would chill out a little bit? Or do you think he'd still act like that?
No, he would chill out a little bit.
But you weren't going to do that?
When I did it, he would chill out for like 24 hours. And then we went back to the same cycle where he's calling me and being insecure and doing, like, when I had to go to Utah, and this was a trip planned for months. Okay, I went to Utah to go to Blink-182 with my girlfriends who got me. It was so awesome. It was so good. Went to go do that because I knew in December, because my girlfriend called me and said, hey, like, I really want to take you and Sarah to Blink-182. My husband got us, you know, these tickets. Like, please, please, please. Like, if there's any way you can come, like, I really want to bring the two of you, right? So here I am. I've just moved into an apartment. I've been sleeping on the floor, then an air mattress, and now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to freaking go to Utah on my own dime, okay? So this has been planned for months. Before I even knew this man fucking existed, I knew I was going to Utah in July. And so he had said something about July. I said, oh, no, I'm going to be gone for my birthday. I'm going to be gone pretty much the whole month of July. I'm outie. Like, I'm not here. Oh, and he used to say stuff to me like we'd be having like a totally fine like date or whatever, and he'd just be like, "Are you gonna forget about me when you go to Utah?" And I'm like,
Ooh.
"What?"
Hi.
Like, it just is so over the top. You know what I mean? And in my mind, it's like, no, you should be happy for me that I'm going to Utah first and foremost. You know this is for work. You know it's for family. The only fun thing I get to do while I'm there is go to Blink-182. That's it. Everything else is for work. Everything else is for family. Like, my family's been through some really fucking tragic shit the last year and a half. And, like, he knows that, like, deeply. And I'd have to over-explain myself. And I finally, like, I got to a point where I was like, you're the only person in my life I shouldn't have to explain shit to. And yet I have to over-explain it to you. And I have to overly fucking put you in a place where you feel sort of comfortable, but you're still going to take it out on me. Like, guess what, hun? Like, you're a good dude. This has nothing to do with me. Nothing. Because I've told you what I can give you. I've given you what I can give you. I've told you where my boundaries are. I've told you how I feel about this. And if you can't respect
That's on
me,
him, then.
it's
gave him the
totally
stuff.
on him.
You gave him all the stuff.
I did.
Why are you tripping, man? Like, I
Yeah.
don't get it.
And that's the thing that like really bothered me, right? And that's the reason why like when I went on that date in Utah, I did not fucking feel bad at all. Because in my mind, I'm just like, no, I've
Yeah,
already
it's
set my
just like-
boundaries. You're still disrespecting them. How does that work?
I love these breaks, these little intermission breaks. But can I tell you something? Like,
Yeah.
you know, we've been talking for a while now, which
Yeah.
is not a bad thing. And this is always like the goal for me.
Mm-hmm.
So this has just been so much fun. How tired are you of talking right now? If
Oh, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
It's up to you, honestly.
Oh, I'm doing great. This is like, again, this is what I live for. I love doing this. It's more like having to do it like on the spot is hard, but it definitely like trains me to like keep up. But this has been such a nice pace where it's just like, okay, sometimes you need to take like a 5 minute, you know?
Mhm.
It's like, this is really nice. Not gonna lie.
Good. That makes me happy.
Yeah. So
It
this
does.
is really fun. But again, I guess now that we're going into it, I think we're like going into like I don't know how many hours now. But I feel like I haven't even touched enough.
Scratch the surface?
Not even a little bit. Would you be opposed to doing this more?
No,
Like, why
no,
haven't
not-
you
yeah, of
done this
course.
on your own? Is what I'm saying.
Honestly, so
Like you have such a good story, let alone that. But your
Mhm.
way of like you should be taking the reins. Why don't you have your
Aw.
own show? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean it's something I wanted to do for a long time, and obviously too, right? Like we were just touching the surface on like my experience in social media and having businesses and stuff. Like, you know, I love talking to people. I love their stories. Like I love being able to like get to the root of something, and also I like being able to like learn through things that happen. You know, I think that everybody, like I say, has something to offer. Your hookah's just right over here, and then I'm just waiting on coals for everybody right now. Yep, just right there. You're very welcome. So like
And I'm
it's
keeping most of the stuff in.
No, that's
'cause I love how
totally-
raw it is. It's just dope as
okay.
hell.
I was
It's
gonna
raw.
say, I was like, sorry, I'm probably yelling into the mic. Yeah, they're still cooking right now. Yeah, they're still cooking. Sorry, hun, but they will be done. I would say give it 5 minutes, and they'll be done.
I just love how raw this is. Because again, we're here for a reason. Like I'm here for a reason. I didn't just walk in. But like, you know what I mean? There's history here. I love this place.
Yes.
And so it's not even just like, oh man, we have to be quiet. You know, like no, I love the atmosphere. I love everything about it. I want to keep this as raw as possible. It just
Totally.
so happens like there's just a huge presence just sitting on the couch when I walked in.
Oh God, no, you're so nice. Well, and that's the thing that like is always interesting to me. Like I don't know how you saw. I don't know. I never know really like what people's perspectives are of me. So
Gut
like when,
feeling, and I'm a weird one because I know these things.
Yeah.
I've after like solid 5 years of doing it, you just have a gut feeling. I have my own gut feelings. You know what I'm saying? You're not the only
Totally.
special one here.
my special powers.
Yeah, I have special powers too, and one of my things is I'm very intuitive as well. I'm very like into, like I can definitely get a vibe, like pretty good, for the most part, and like that excitement that I got, that twinkle in my eye was because I knew there was something here, and I knew that there's something that needed to be documented, because I think in the long game, like this is fun now.
Oh,
and This
totally.
is cool what we're doing, but like. Ultimately, I'm documenting a lot of my stories. I'm documenting my life.
Totally.
You know, 5 years ago, I was so different from now, right? We're all growing. But, like, this is just another chapter of my growth. And I'm just, like, explaining my growth to people.
I think that's amazing. And honestly, it's kind of funny. Like, as you said that, I was like, you know, it's funny. Like, my story's never been documented. Like, I have such a weird one. And like I say, like, I've always wanted to go into podcast format because I think it's really interesting. I can talk for fucking days, so it's kind of annoying. But I think that I've had trouble, like, if I can say anything about like my creativity, like I can come up with like a million business ideas or content creation ideas or whatever for so many other people. But when it comes to me, I have some blockage that goes on, and it's so much better for me to have a little bit of collaboration, or, you know, like I've always said, like I love therapy so much. I believe in it like to my core. I feel like everyone needs it. I know everyone has a different perspective, but I feel like there's so much value to someone holding up the mirror to you so you can see your blind spots.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that. You want to know my gimmick, and you know one of my tricks?
Yes.
My trick, and it's not much of a trick, but my gimmick for DJing is I have people send requests.
Yes.
That's my gimmick for DJing.
Yes.
My gimmick for podcasting is I'm literally just a mirror, and I just mirror your vibe.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling aggressive, I'm gonna get aggressive with you. But that keeps me in a state of mind where I can get. So you're like, you're telling me all this stuff, but I don't seem phased. I don't seem phased because you don't seem phased.
Yeah.
Because I'm there with you. It's like I was there in the chaos.
Yeah.
And I want to feel a part of the chaos, you know?
Which is so wild, honestly.
Yeah. But I just always tell people I'm just your mirror. I literally am just the mirror. And I if anything, like, you're curating this as much as I am. And I think that's the most important part. Half of this just like the shit I talk. Mm-hmm. But it's just so much more important to be that mirror for you. Mm-hmm. And it's just any guest that I ever have. And just for me to document it is so much more special to me.
It's so cool. And like, honestly, it makes me realize too, right? Like, you think about like documenting your story when you're like old and like almost dead, right? Like, at least that's what I think, because
these things are still going to be around.
Yeah. It's like,
I like
it's
to think,
so
like,
crazy.
Especially on the platforms that I have them on. Unless the internet dies out, theoretically, these are going to be available for life.
Exactly.
These are like tattoos, but for like, you know, social media. You know what I mean?
Well, I think about like the Billie Eilish like interviews, right? Have you seen those? Like where they've done it like every year?
Yeah.
Man, whenever I see those,
and how much she changes, it's so crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It makes you really have some perspective where you're like, damn, like, you know, we really do ebb and flow and change, and perspectives change. And, you know, even the way that she gets to watch her old interviews and react to herself, like who she used to be or like what she's grown from, you know, it's so beautiful. That
was ideally because, you know, like, I love Ross. It just sucks that he's not here. He's here.
I know,
in spirit. But he's not physically here. And we're out here thinking about him all the time.
Absolutely.
But I feel like that was the mentality going into it, because that first podcast that I did with him was such an impactful one for me in my life, and just what I've been doing here. It's almost like it does feel full circle, you know what I mean? And it does feel. It's like I'm almost doing a reboot. Like, I'm not talking to him directly, but I'm almost talking in this space. It's just I feel the energy.
Oh, totally.
You know
and that's what I will say. Like with Ross, like Ross is such a force to be reckoned with, and you know, we all have our flaws, we all have our things that we deal with. But like, I will say, like, you know, Ross is a very, 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 very pivotal part of my story here in Oregon. Like, I think the reason why I'm so happy here and so grounded here, it literally stems from Ross. Like, and then all of the beautiful people I've met through Ross. Like, I am forever in debt, honestly, to him and his friendship. Like, he truly, I don't think he understands how much he's impacted people. And so, like, the fact that, like, even you and I are sitting here across from each other, like, that is only because of Ross.
Isn't that weird?
It's
like,
crazy.
And I also think it's, like, weird, like look at it like this. You were born in Utah, July 1991. I was born in Elgin, Illinois, August of 91. Like, it's only a month apart, but, like, the universe, and maybe I'm thinking more tuned into it, but the universe brought us here to this moment now. And just, like, I'm probably going to be sitting in bed later and just be like, fuck, this is weird. We're like on a floating rock in space, but we're here today. You
totally.
know?
Absolutely.
And I'm just, like, enjoying every second of this.
Absolutely. It's honestly, it's amazing. It truly is. Like,
and so I'm like, because I touched that, coming I think we're getting close to wrapping this episode down the rabbit hole. There's a lot of holes we made. I would just like to express an open invitation. Would you continue wanting to do this with me?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime. I think it's important,
Okay,
honestly.
we'll give it a little fight first. We'll be like, let me think.
No,
about it.
ew.
Like, give me a little fight.
Ew,
Like, come
no.
on, give me a little fight.
What do I get?
You have that exciting, like, that twinkle in your eye, like I do, and people tell me that you have that twinkle, and I use that as like, that's my measure of a person. Like, let me see how much twinkle you got. And so when you have that twinkle, I ran so fast to my house to get my equipment.
I know,
just so
seriously. I couldn't believe how quick you were back here. I was like, damn.
let's go. Let's
Yeah.
do this. This is great. I didn't want to lose that twinkle, and then didn't lose because it's been a hit or miss sometimes, And I've helped people in the past make their podcasts, and I've helped people try to put people on.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to do a podcast. Okay, I have the equipment. Use it. I don't mind.
Oh, that's so nice
Hell
of you.
yeah, do it.
That's so nice of you.
If I have the equipment, do it. Oh, I want to learn how to DJ. Here's a turntable. Do it.
Dude,
Like,
that's so awesome.
If I have the resources and I can help you, hell yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Whether I've been burned or not, it's more like my goal ultimately is to have a circle of collaborators, because doing this by myself it's fun for the first 5 years, but
Right. But it starts to get boring. Like, it's good to collaborate. And honestly, like, the ship rises with the tide, right? Like, you need multiple human beings involved.
first timer.
Yeah, I think coming back into smoking.
Hell yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Hell yeah, man.
And you've never been here before, right? I'm so glad that you're here. Seriously.
Hell
No,
yeah,
it's such a chill place. So I'm glad that you're here. I just need to make sure too. Shamaki was gonna come in tonight. I don't know if he's still coming in.
What time are you guys closing up shop today?
11, but these guys are regulars. You can stay as long as you want to. And same with you too. Like, we're gonna be open probably a little bit past 11. Just when I start cleaning up, I'll let you know. But don't feel like a rush to leave like in 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Okay? Yeah, of course.
Like, put your feet up.
Yeah, exactly. Make yourself at home.
Make yourself at home. And I think that's the best part, because it is, you do feel at home here. You know what I mean?
Please do put those feet up. Come on,
Yeah.
Aaron. You know that you own real estate here at this point.
So, I guess getting down to the end of it a little bit, at least for now.
Oh, totally.
We
We can leave them with a cliffhanger. Ooh.
Yeah.
Want to come back for more episodes?
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, you've probably given enough for like 3 parts already.
Exactly.
You did
Perfect, which is great.
You did the whole trilogy like tonight, and then I still got to do the reboots like in a week. But like, so now this is the part where I want to do like a lot of shameless plugging.
Hey, please do.
Like shameless plugging. Where are we? What's happening? This, it's September 12th.
Yes.
Today.
Yes.
Thursday, September 12th. That was a good one. That was a good one. September 12th, we're on Thursday. What's happening with I'm gonna call it the shop. With the what are you guys doing here in the future? What are you guys trying to accomplish? Especially like I said, with Ross not being here physically. What are the goals here and what's happening? I want to know everything, even though I already know.
I'll give you what I'm allowed to talk about openly. So
Yes.
Our sweet Rostam is in Iraq, and myself, Sandra, and our friend Chewy, we're all running the lounge while he's gone. By the way, we're gonna stay open as late as you want to be here. So if you want to stay past 11, that's okay. Okay, I just want to make sure. I was like, don't be rushing out of here, Habibi. But with Ross being gone, the 3 of us have stepped up to continue the place running because there are so many people that love this place. And for us, it's important that it stays open for the community to still have a place to come and congregate. We have people from all different walks of life and people from all different countries, right? From Somalia, Ghana, Ethiopia, Turkey, Saudi, Palestine, Iraq, Kuwait. Name a country outside of here. We probably have somebody from that country that comes here. And it's so important to have a cultural place for people to come and feel comfortable, and like they have a place where they can find their people, whether you are American or Canadian or otherwise, as well, right? Like we have so much of this melting pot here. So it's important to us to keep something like this open because so many people feel so connected to this place too. We've had, older customers come in here who used to come here 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And we've had brand new people that are like, man, like I didn't know this existed, or this, when the laws changed to 21, like we couldn't come in anymore, at age 18. So we just kind of forgot or whatever, So the goal for us right now is to keep this open as long as possible. We don't know when Rustam is coming back. And with that being said, the three of us that are running this right now, we all work full-time jobs, and then we come here and we volunteer our time. And it's truly for the love of Rustam. And for the love of the people that come here, because it's that important to create a safe space. I think that there's so many people seeking a safe space and community, and so really what our biggest goal here is to create a safe space and community. Like, money will follow any good intention, right? Like,
Facts.
it's never going to be about the money, but obviously money, you have to have it in order to continue things going forward. So we understand the blood, sweat, equity that we've put into this is going to have to continue. And with that being said, like, we also want that to be where then let's make it to where someone has something to look forward to, whether it's to come here and study or to come here and have a party and come dance with DJs, or have some sort of like a Halloween party to come to, or a safe place to come to after you've been out with your friends and come relax here. That's really the goal. The goal is to generate more revenue here, to keep it open for the community, and to create more things to look forward to, because Salem, coming from Utah, it is interesting to come to a city, because everybody's asking me, why Salem? Why did you move here? And I'm like, good fucking question. Like, what the fuck? No, I'm just kidding. I actually really like Salem a lot. I really, really do.
That's what everyone says. It's our shit town, but it's our shit town.
Yeah, like it's honestly, when I get that question and they're just like, you could have gone anywhere else in Oregon, why here? It's just like, the fact I ended up here is a crazy story in and of itself, but I actually don't see all the negative that most locals especially feel, and I don't see the lack of potential here. I actually see so much potential here. And so I find it very interesting, like the perspectives people have. And obviously I haven't been here long enough to, have all the experience, quote unquote, right? Where people are just like, well, you don't know how many businesses flip through here and da da da. And, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. And that's okay. But that doesn't mean that you can't create something here that either makes an impact or creates a continuous impact, right? So if you have the opportunity to do that, why not take the reins on that and do that, Like, it just doesn't make sense to me, like all the negativity that goes around. But again, like I'm such an optimistic psychopath that I'm over here just like, no way, there's so much we can do. So honestly, especially with a place like this, like there's so much potential here. There's so much, community that needs a place like this, that, and wants a place. Like, honestly, like people want a place to go and chill. People want a place to go congregate. Like, and sometimes that gets really fucking boring when it's your fucking front room or the park, like,
right.
So to have a place that's, got a good vibe, got a, an open and safe environment, like I would say that's the most important thing to those of us that are running this right now, truly. And honestly, Ross too, like him entrusting this to us is a huge, huge feat of faith on his part, of looking at the three of us and saying, okay, I trust you enough to take the thing I've been doing for the past 13 years. I'll hand you the keys, and you can run it the way you want to run it while I'm gone. And so I don't take that lightly. Like, this is not my business, but I want to treat it as if it is my business, right? Like, that's important to me. I want every person that walks through that door to feel like they want to come back, because the people that are here, they care about them. Like, you're not just another person walking through. You're not just another person that's going to come sit and smoke hookah with us for, a half hour or 5 hours. I mean, people, at least for me, like I want everyone to feel like they matter, especially when hookah is such a special thing, right? People don't really understand the culture of hookah, right? Like when people find out that I've been smoking hookah since I was like 22, they're like, what are you talking about? I love hookah. The culture that it brings around, the conversations that happen around hookah.
That's special.
It's so special. And if you've never done it, you never will understand. It's whenever I travel, I will find a hookah lounge somewhere and I will go. That is something for me that I do no matter what. So if I go to another city, I'm looking for a hookah lounge, because that's my me time, right? Like that's my time to go and be in the environment that I love, because no matter what, you will meet somebody that you will never cross paths with in any other way. and you'll learn something. You really will. Like, if you put yourself in environments that are not typical, like, you'll never have a typical experience. And hookah is such a funny cultural difference compared to so many. Like, you can't go to a bar and have the same experience here. You just can't.
Not at all. And I think, and you mentioned that, like, it is true. Like, and I feel like a lot of us who come to these type of lounges, we're very similar. And whether you want some alone time, you feel like an outcast, you want that sense of camaraderie, that brotherhood via different cultures, that experience. Like, this is just a sanctuary for that type of person. And I think that's what makes it so special. And, you know, people talk about, oh, hookah's very juvenile. It's very this. And it's like,
No, not
that's
at
so
all.
above the surface.
Yeah.
It's more than that. It's culture. And I think that's what people are missing. So I'm really excited to see what you guys do to it, because not only are you guys keeping the culture alive, you're adding a modern twist to it to get more people to come in.
Yes, absolutely. Because we want people to feel attracted to it, whether you are so full blown into the freaking hookah smoke and like learning how to, you know, blow rings and like whatever, you know, but like, or we just want you to feel like you can come here and like at minimum have like a place to hang with your friends or to come be by yourself and decompress. Like, it's important to have those places for yourself, right? Like,
Right.
So if we can create that and there's no pressure from us to either indulge or not indulge, like, why not? Like, what a gift, you know, like at least that's how I feel. Like, it's a gift to have a place that's a sanctuary versus something that's pressured and over the top, you know?
And I love that. Very well said. It's, do you guys have any events coming up?
Well,
What events are
now
coming?
that you mention it.
What's going on? Like, I want people to know what's going on.
You know, we really would like to create some cultural events here. It's important to us, right? Like, we have a really big Ethiopian community that resides here in Salem, or just in Oregon in general, honestly, too. But we would love to have some sort of Ethiopian events that we bring, like, their culture here and play their music and have maybe some sort of their food here, things like that, right? I think that's important to us on a very deep level, not just because a lot of our friends here are from these countries, but I mean, their culture is so beautiful, and anywhere that they can go and actually feel like they might have like a little taste of home, like that would be like so sick, you know, to be able to provide that. So we'd love to have like maybe an Ethiopian night. We'd really love to have a night where, you know, like I know we've talked about wanting to do something for Halloween as well, like to where it's like, come like the best costume in here, like let's give you, you know 4 free hookahs or something for it, you know, something where, yes, like in Oregon, you can't drink at hookah lounges, right? So we don't offer any type of alcoholic beverages or things like that. But like as if like you would go and do like a game night at, you know, whether it's a bar or elsewhere, we'd love to do game nights here too. That's something that we've talked about. And then we've also got a big group of veterans in this area too that they need a place to congregate and meet. So we'd really like to provide a place for the veterans to come and have, you know, a space to meet together and have, you know, their meetings and, you know, again, just a safe space. So the next one that we're hoping for or thinking about doing, I didn't even call Sandra, I just thought about that, is, you know, whether it's this Saturday or 2 Saturdays from now, we're going to have this really sick fucking DJ come in and create a really sick atmosphere for us. Who's that DJ?
That's DJ Weezy.
That's my DJ.
DJ Weezy. Hey. And I'm going to just put it on record now because of my love for this place. Like, the conversation was really funny because I was originally thought I was talking to the man himself. And
Good old Ross.
Yeah, and then I sent him a message of my new setup that I had, and I was like, "Hey man, like, what is it? Like, this is my setup. Have you guys thought about having a DJ again? Because in the past they did it, you know." And I was expecting him to just like, you know, let's talk about it, kind of like weasel my way in there. Because I would love to do more like events with this. And then would you say, how much would you charge? Brother, for you, nothing. I stand by that. So as long as you guys need the help or want the help, I'm putting it on record now. I will offer my services as well as for you guys too, in any capacity that I can. Whether you need me to DJ or you need some help on the sideline, let me know.
You're so sweet, seriously.
I'm
it means
down.
a lot. It means a lot.
I love this place so much, and it's so special to me. Like, yes, let's do it. If you need a DJ one night, I will playlist pirate that shit. So good.
Yeah, we would be so appreciative. Like, you have no idea. And like when you came in, you're just like, what? Like, I was talking to you. I'm like, I know it was me. I'm sorry.
I got catfished.
You did.
I did. I hell got catfished. But like this is probably one of my favorite catfishes ever. Because not only like were you like super cool, but you didn't like try to like fuck me, like rape me or whatever.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, yeah.
you could have been just some weird old fat dude, and you're
Yeah.
not.
No.
And I was like, thank God I didn't get catfished.
No.
This is the one time
I'm
glad I never-
just a 33-year-old chick that dresses like a millennial boy. You know,
Goddamn.
it is what it is.
And so
It
you
is what
guys
it
have been
is.
listening to Down the Rabbit Hole. You guys heard it here. They're gonna try to get some events going. Definitely, we'll repost a lot of the stuff. What's the socials? Do you guys have socials too?
We do.
What are the socials? Can you
Oh
name
my
them all?
gosh! You know
Name
what?
all.
Even add us on Snapchat too. Hey.
You guys have a Snapchat
we
too?
have a Snapchat too. It's so
You guys
good.
have everything, and
We
especially
do.
Even if you guys want to ask like, what are the prices?
Oh yeah.
They'll let you know. They're
Heck
really
yeah.
kind here.
Aw.
If you want to dip your toes in, just ask all the questions.
Absolutely. And honestly too, like that's what we love, right? Like I love when somebody comes in here and they're like, I've never done this before, please help. You're like, I love that shit because it's like, okay, like for sure. Like let me help you out. Like let me tell you how it works, right? Like some people don't even understand that there's like actually like shisha in the head of the hookah. Like they're like, huh? Like what am I smoking? Where does the smoke come from? And I find that like I love that people are just like willing to like be vulnerable and be like, I don't even know. And I'm like, yes, that's great. We love that. We love people that don't know because that means that we get the opportunity to sit and talk about it and educate you, because if I get to share something that is so near and dear to my heart, like my hope is that even if it's only like you're just going to be here for the next half hour or you're going to return back over and over again, like my hope is that you've been introduced to a culture that has a very special energy about it that if you're willing to be open to it and come back and be in this environment, like you'll find that like whether it's just for yourself or for your willingness to connect with others, like there's like a magic in this freaking hookah bowl. I don't know what the heck happens, but you talk to any walk of life and they'll feel the exact same way. So it's pretty
Hell
fun.
yeah.
But if you guys want to add us on Snapchat, it's King's Hookah. So just KINGSHOOKAH. Please do add us. It will be me that you're talking to, not Ross the boss, but please just know, like in spirit, like I talk just like him. We are best friends. Just don't worry about it, okay? Are you going to head out? Yeah. Thank you so much for coming in. Seriously. Like, I hope I see you again, yeah? Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to come back anytime. You're very welcome.
And that's that energy, guys, that I'm talking about. That's that camaraderie, that sense of belonging that I'm talking about. So, King's Hookah, guys, Down the Rabbit Hole Podcast. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Natalie, for taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely.
This has been super special to me. I don't want this to ever end. You're not going to... Dude, this is not it. This is not it.
No, we have
Catfish me
so
again.
much we got to cover because like
Catfish me
honestly,
again.
listen, I'll totally catfish you again, and we'll go over like my time in YouTube working with Mr. Beast. We'll go over my time, working as a coach, turning into a life coach, doing social media, now creating my own brand on TikTok. Like we'll go over all of it. It's gonna be super fun.
Hells motherfucking yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for listening to Down the Rabbit Hole Podcast.
Thanks for having me.